Chapter 486, Lil Fires. This fire crow Taoist skill isn't bad. Wei Li Tian's expression changed slightly as he stared at the black fire ling crows without blinking. He was considering if he should recruit fire crow Taoist into his group. With the skill that the fire crow Taoist was displaying now, it was enough for him to earn a spot in this group. Xian did not speak, his eyes tightly locked on the intimidating fire crows. The group pupils were at full force, the fire crows in his eyes turning in balls of pulsing black flames. Each ball of black flame was pulsing at an unique rate and the ling power in the surroundings was flooding towards them. It was truly frightening. Yet what was completely opposite of the presence of the fire crows was the abnormal calm of Turtle Island below them. This was an unusual calm. There was no movement in the view of his gray pupils. Even the azure light that had been barely discernible before had disappeared now. It was too calm. The others seemed to be ignorant that someone was attacking their formation, not reacting at all. Xian widened his eyes and didn't dare to blink in fear he would miss a detail. For some reason, this unusual calm quickly spread through the crowd. The Xianxia unconsciously stopped their breathing as though they were waiting for something. At this time, Fire Crow Taoist cast his spell and shouted, "Go!" The flames on the foreheads of the fire crows suddenly paused, their eyes glaring as they shot up. Their spread-out wings seemed to burn, the feathers turning rapidly to flames as the bright red patterns on the feathers turned to lines of red that mixed within the flame and added a touch of eeriness. They suddenly dove down. The air instantly was filled with fire. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The 30 fire crows were like arrows shot out a bow, giving off a long black tail of fire as though they were meteors coming from the sky. Just as the fire crows seemed to pass through the formation, the azure light of the formation flashed. A thin azure shell of light that seemed like an eggshell suddenly appeared. Xian's gray pupils were suddenly covered in a layer of gray mist. He almost burst out, this was it. When he saw the yin-yang thundercloud formation, he had found that an almost indiscernible azure light existed. He had perceptively noticed this azure light, that was so easy to be missed, and quickly judged that it was in reality a very powerful formation. But this layer of weak azure light had quickly disappeared as though it was a delusion he had experienced. But Xian believed in his judgment and also his gray eyes. He patiently waited. He knew that if it was a formation, it would definitely appear again. Only now when this thin azure eggshell reappeared, he finally saw its true appearance. This transformation had occurred extremely fast that most people were unable to react in time. Among many people's exclamations, the first fire crow hit the azure light shell. Boom! Like a meteorite from heaven, each fire crow smashed heavily on the azure light shell. The fire crows were like drumsticks, and the eggshell the drum. The enormous sounds of collision beat on everyone's hearts. The sound spread explosively in many people's bodies froze, their expressions changing. The azure eggshell shook, the fire crows suddenly exploded into countless wisps of flame that spread out. Dong dong dong. The rapid sound of collision was like a drumbeat that intimidated with every beat. Transparent air ripples spread and was like blades cutting the flesh where it passed. No one had expected these small fire crows to be so strong. This wave of Fire Chief Crow caused the spectators' hearts to almost stop beating. Many people finally recovered at this moment and exhaled heavily. The last ripple spread and it became peaceful again. The flames that had exploded now spread and covered the entire shell as it burned silently. The Fire Crow Taoist had not expected the other's formation to be secure. The Fire Chief Crow, he had such high hopes for had not succeeded. This caused his face to look slightly ugly. However, he was not panicked and a smirk floated at the corner of his mouth. The dominance and maliciousness of the Fire Chief Crow was not just this. Coming out of their shock, the spectators were puzzled. Why was the Fire Crow Taoist motionless? If he did not have more powerful moves, then come down. There would naturally be people that would go up. Why wasn't he willing to come down? Yet when their gazes landed on the formation on Turtle Island, their pupils suddenly contracted. Those black-red flames that had scattered on the eggshell had not weakened. They were still tightly glued onto the shell of light and were burning silently. Was it? Many people's eyes lit up. Suemo raised his head. That wave of fire Chief Crow had also made him jump. Suemo had a move called Meteor Void Fire in the past that had been similar to this move, but his move was weak in comparison to Fire Chief Crow. As the 30 fire crows dove down, there was a feeling the sky had changed color. There was countless Xianxia in the world and all of them had their own secret techniques. This fire crow method appeared normal but on further inspection, it was filled with unpredictable changes. That black fire wasn't normal and if he wasn't careful, the other would succeed in breaking through the formation. Large amounts of black fire burned right next to the eggshell. Each bloom of fire was not large but they did not extinguish. Suemo furrowed his brow. He could detect that there were many corrosive powers continuously charging the meridional azure ether formation. The amount of Ling power the meridional azure ether formation was consuming had increased greatly. Based on this speed, the meridional azure ether formation would not be defeated, but the Jingxia would not be able to support it. Suemo raised his head and gazed at the black fire burning on the eggshell above his head. At this time, a red shadow suddenly charged at the shell of light. Suemo focused and was stunned. Lil Fire. Almost at the same time, Lil Pagoda took control of the meridional azure ether formation from Suemo's hands. What were these two doing? Suemo's heart jumped and his expression changed slightly. These two mischievous guys could not be playful at this time. There was a huge crowd of Jindan outside. If the formation was opened now, and the others took the chance to enter the island, then it would all be over. This was different than the attack from the Tian family last time. There were truly too many Jindan, so many that not even the battalions could defeat them. There was also a large number of low-level Xianxia on the island. They did not have any strength to protect themselves. If the enemy charged it, the outcome would not bear thinking. Suemo shook. Yet before he could stop them, what happened stunned him. Lil Fire's round and bouncy body was like a sticky rice bun that pasted itself onto the shell of light. Its entire face seemed to be pressed to the inner wall of the shell as it looked yearningly at the flames outside the shell, as though it saw something delicious and was drooling. Suemo almost thought his eyes were not working. He rubbed his eyes hard and made sure what he saw was not an illusion. This guy was really drooling. The following scene once again surpassed Suemo's limits of understanding. Blocked by the shell of light, Lil Fire's body rolled and it aimed its butt at the flames on the outside. Poo! A light sound, the flames outside the shell turned to a line of fire that burrowed into the orifice of Lil Fire's behind. Suemo grabbed his head with his hands and turned to stone. Oh, heavens! What was this? He suddenly recalled how Lil Fire would sprout a thin line of fire whenever he would squeeze its round body. When he was bored, Suemo would frequently do this. As he squeezed Lil Fire's tender and bouncy body, bursts of flame would erupt and, being interesting, he used it to relieve his boredom. But now he saw that Lil Fire's orifice that sprouted fire, was furiously, no, crazily sucking in flames. Suemo felt his world was crumbling. The people beside him that had been brimming with murderousness were stunned. Such a strange scene clearly surpassed the limits of understanding for normal people. Having absorbed one thread of fire, Lil Fire gave a happy sigh and then it rolled along on the inner wall of the shell to the next fire. Everywhere Lil Fire passed, the flames on the outside turned into lines of fire and entered its orifice. Every time this happened, the formation would ripple lightly. This was because Lil Pagoda was working together with Lil Fire, the two were in great sync. Turtle Island was completely silent. Zuemo and the others below watched with raised faces as though they were rows of statues. The Fire Crow Daoist's eyes were half-lidded and seemed very confident. He knew that the other people were also seeing the effects of his talisman. He was patiently waiting. The black fire Ling crows had been forged by harvesting the black fire from the depths of the earth. This kind of black fire was called the granite fiend fire. He had searched through mountains, continents, and swamps to find this in a deep and poisonous cave. He had really used great effort and spent much thought on forging the talisman. When this granite fiend fire burned, it would attach itself and would not extinguish until what it was burning was ash. It was extremely malicious and specialized in attacking all kinds of space and Ling shields. He had forged 108 fire crows this time. Since the ruins event happened, he had planned to make his debut and thought of using the situation to become famous. Up until now, the development of events had not diverged from what he had predicted. The other did not know the power of the granite fiend fire and allowed it to keep burning. They were really stupid. That was good. It was time for he, the Fire Crow Daoist, to become famous. The Fire Crow Daoist was full of ambition, waiting for the Ling power of the formation to be used up and for them to charge in. At this time, the small chatter in the surroundings entered his ears. Fire Crow Daoist couldn't help but frown. This group of people had cultivated to Jin Dan, how could their composure be so lacking? When he opened his eyes and his gaze landed on the shell, it was like someone hit him over the head and sparks spun in his eyes. The shell of light that had been covered in flame just now was completely bald and empty. Why was it like this? Granite fiend fire. Where was the granite fiend fire that would not extinguish until it burned all to ash? He looked dazedly at the mirror-smooth shell of azure light, green and red crossing on his face. His gourd was completely empty. He thought about how much hardship he had endured to find that granite fiend fire, he thought about the many years he had spent to forge the 108 black fire Ling crows, he thought about his ambitions and becoming famous. But there was only that eggshell of azure light left in his eyes with nothing on it. Fire Crow Daoist looked dazedly on like this for a moment, and then he suddenly sprayed a mouthful of fresh blood, dropping out of the sky like a rock. Chapter 487, Come. Having swallowed the granite fiend fire, Lil fire was like an inflated balloon, its body was now black and red. It slowly flew down from the shell of light at an extremely slow rate, as though it was a fatty that had eaten too much and was moving slowly with a large body. Lil Pagoda came out of somewhere and circled Lil fire, nudging Lil fire and then sitting on Lil fire. Darren? Isn't Lil fire a fire Yao beast? Xia Shan's expression was uncertain. Yes. Suemo reflexively nodded. Are all fire Yao beasts this powerful? Xia Shan showed admiration. Fire Yao beasts were not commonly seen but were not rare. More importantly, it was not expensive. Maybe he could buy a fire Yao beast. He did not know that the black fire was granite fiend fire, but he had seen the power of the fire crows, and he knew the fire was not ordinary. Even the slowest person knew that Lil fire wasn't ordinary based on how Lil fire was able to consume all the fire. Suemo felt slightly stunned and his expression was strange. I don't know. Xia Shan rubbed his hands and said yearningly, Darren, how about getting Qing Darren to breed a few more, and give each person one? He turned his face and looked at the slowly flying Lil fire, saying heatedly, looking at Lil fire's figure, it's one that is good at breeding. Why don't we breed a few more? Lil fire's ears were very keen. Hearing this, its round body suddenly froze. A vision suddenly floated up of it being held captive in the beast pool, a group of little Lil fires jumping around it. It uncontrollably shook. The body which had just been tinged black instantly became pitch black. With a bang, it dropped onto the ground, creating a great bloom of dirt. It furiously wriggled its ball-like body and fled in panic. Looking at Lil Fire's sorry state, Mo roared in laughter. His mind returned to the sky and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. The Xianxia in the sky showed no intentions of leaving and there were several more groups that were further away. Do you think that Turtle Island is a fat piece of meat? Mo smirked coldly inside. The death of the fire crow Taoist only caused a small furor. Everyone quickly calmed down. Other than those geniuses that came from those large sects, normal Jindan had to experience many battles and were experienced with death. They were attacking a large island with an island formation, how could there not be any fatalities? But the problem was that layer of azure shell had not changed at all. Is there any signs of it weakening? Wei Li Tian asked Xian. No. Xian's answer was very decisive. There had been a few moments where the formation had shown slight rippling but he could not grasp what kind of effect this change indicated. He had never heard of the wonders of this formation. Xian started to be suspicious of the origins of this group of people. This large formation was not something a normal sect could possess. Only those ancient sects with long histories could possess something like this. Turtle Island's origins are probably not simple, this formation is very powerful. Xian decided to state his opinion because the following actions would determine his own life and death. Xian never told lies. Wei Li Tian showed a cautious expression. He asked Xiu Ling, can you divine their origins? Xiu Ling gave a grimace. This subordinate does not have the power. Many people only knew that divination could predict the future and detect all kinds of things but did not understand there were many restrictions. If one wasn't careful, their souls would be destroyed. Also, it wasn't possible to divine everything. The more specific the matter, the harder it was to divine and the greater the price that had to be paid. Wei Li Tian did not speak. He decided to wait and see. There was a group of people not far from Wei Li Tian, Leng Wei's group that Zhong Ru had encountered in Su Ling City. Leng Wei glanced at Wei Li Tian and said in a low voice, everyone, be careful. That is Wei Li Tian. Butcher Wei Li Tian. Some people exclaimed. This name represented death to them. The red-clothed male showed a rebellious expression and snorted. So what if it is Wei Li Tian? If he dares come, we can kill him. Boss, can we take down this Turtle Island? Dragging on like this, these groups are like girls. Leng Wei shook his head. Not so simple, this formation is very powerful. Then what? We stand and watch, the red-robed male said urgently. That Turtle Island is brimming with wealth. If we can get it, we'll be rich. Leng Wei's brow creased. His nephew, Leng Sheng's talents were exceptional and had become a Jindan at a young age but he was worried about the other's fiery temper. As they spoke, another few Jindan went forward and started to attack the formation. At this time, several figures suddenly flew out of the island and caused everyone to stop talking. Ha ha! Turtle Island, a bunch of turtles hiding in their shells. What? Finally can't stand it. Have you come to surrender? A Xianxia said smugly, as long as you surrender and leave immediately, we'll spare your lives. Otherwise, with so many good heroes and men here, when we defeat your formation, won't leave a chicken alive. Mo looked coldly at the surroundings and ignored that person. At his side, Ma Fan's expression suddenly changed. He snorted coldly, sneaking around. Before his voice stopped, the flying sword in his hand twisted in the air. Pew, blood sprayed and a limb shot out of the air. A figure wailed and tripped. Ma Fan had been the best at concealment in the past. He was the first to detect someone was sneaking near Darren to try to assassinate him, so he had been merciless in his attack. At a distance, Leng Wei and the others' expressions changed. It's him. Their gazes all landed on Zhong Ru, who was standing beside Mo. Their encounter at Su Ling City that day had left a deep impression on them of Zhong Ru, so when they saw him standing next to Mo, they were very shocked. Wei Xing was on Zuo Mo's right, Xu Long on Zuo Mo's left. Zhong Ru was next to Wei Xing and was the second to Zuo Mo's right. No matter who it was, none of them had imagined the true master of Turtle Island was this outrageously young youth. Looking at that face that still held a thread of tenderness, everyone found it hard to believe. Zuo Mo did not speak and displayed great calmness. In that glance, he had judged the situation. There were 5 groups of people, and what he felt was the greatest threat was that group with 40 to 50 people. Zuo Mo was very sensitive to the presence of battle, and he saw with a glance that this large group were not friendly. The other groups were not as high of a threat to him. Especially this group that was closest to him, there were only 5 people. So it is a little baby whose hair hasn't all grown out. Leng Sheng gave a cold snort and had an unconcerned expression. I had thought it would be a powerful person. Leng Wei did not speak. When that sword had cut off the arm, this youth that was outrageously young didn't even bat an eyelash. He was too calm. This was a calm that did not fit his age. At this time, a bellow came from the group of people nearest Zuo Mo, such daring. At death's door and you dare to harm one of ours. You want to die. Brothers, kill this group of children, don't leave any alive. Zuo Mo's gaze landed on him. His eyes were cold as he spat one word out, kill. Before his words finished, Xia Shan, Ma Fan, Lei Peng, Nian Lu and Owen attacked. From the beginning, the other side had carefully maintained a distance from Zuo Mo's group, but they had never expected the distance which they thought was extremely safe was enough for Xia Shan and the others. Xia Shan and the others had long practiced the 3-section wave killing charge. Short-distance charges were seeped down into their bones and were like an instinct. Between 2 points, a straight line was the shortest. Sword up, power, accelerate, and a charge without any finesse. For ruler straight golden sword lights flashed in everyone's field of view. The exception to guard camp, Owen walked a path completely different than the others. He was a Mo shadow guard skilled in speed. With a light saw, the feathers around him shook lightly and his body disappeared in the air like a ghost. The 5 people paled, hurriedly activating their Ling armor to block this attack. Pia. 4 heads left necks and flew into the air. The power of the 5th grade gold crystal sword was displayed in this kind of charge. The others' Ling armor was like papier-mâché and did not stop them at all. There was a bowl-sized bloody hole at the throat of the last person. No one detected how it had formed. It was like the most practiced butcher treating the lamb on its board, hand up, blade down. A battle finished in the blink of an eye with one side completely losing. Many people showed a hint of terror. Such a sharp and decisive attack was out of everyone's expectations. Shouldn't they be afraid? Wei Li Tian and Leng Wei's expressions started to become grave. They saw and understood more than average Xiuzhe, and the shock they received was much greater than normal Xiuzhe. The 4-sword Xiuzhe had made the same move, clean and crisp, an attack without any finesse. It had the scent they were familiar with, the scent of a battalion. The sky above Turtle Island was completely silent. At this time, a cold smile floated at the corner of Zuo Mo's mouth. He slowly said, I hadn't expected Turtle Island to receive so many heroes today. Zuo Mo's voice was not loud, his tone did not change. He seemed to be narrating a very normal matter but with slight disdain. Yet in this silence, his voice was so clear and echoed in the sky. At this moment, no one dared to underestimate this outrageously young island master any longer. You can fight however you want over the ruins. But Zuo Mo's voice paused, his eyes fierce as he looked at the surroundings. The murderousness on his face was exposed as he slowly breathed out. If someone wants to target our Turtle Island, then you are welcome to see if my sword is sharp or not. Zuo Mo seemed to be uncaring that there were multiple numbers of Jindan around him. Such a great tone. A shout came from a short distance away. At Zuo Mo's side, Wei Xing's brow creased. He stepped forward and his wrist turned. The black sword that was like a horse-chopping saber seemed to be pulled out of a non-existent sword sheath, one that was a void. The speed he was pulling out the sword was not fast, but as the sword rubbed the air, it created a tail of blinding sparks. A sword hum shook the surroundings. Wei Xing dealt a blow. Chapter 488, Wei Xing's one strike. The movement of Wei Xing swinging the sword was filled with the feeling of ease. The large black sword that was as long as he was tall seemed weightless in his hands. Compared to the killing charge of Ma Fan and his fellows, Wei Xing's movements held no presence. Yet everyone's expressions changed dramatically. Even Wei Li Tian and Leng Wei showed fearful expressions. Their gazes were locked on the black sword in Wei Xing's hand. The black sword was like an ink brush and dyed the space it touched with a layer of blackness. The sky that had been sunny before slowly darkened within everyone's terrified gazes as the sword moved. Just like that, the sky darkened until night came. The empty and desolate presence was endless and vast as the ocean, and among this void ocean, the sky full of stars were as bright and glistening as diamonds. My heavens! Someone's exclamation was abnormally loud in the silent sky. The person that had been shouting suddenly stopped. He looked dazedly at the starlight in the sky and was filled with disbelief. How was this possible? How was this possible? Flipping day and night, how great did the cultivation and power have to be? The other was clearly a Jin Dan, how could he execute such a powerful move? Was this an illusion? But the scene was so real, the sky full of stars which were so close they could be touched. He could not detect any presence of an illusion. But to turn day and night using just sword essence, how terrifying. Only those great powers in the legends could have such unnatural skill. He suddenly had a bad feeling. Turtle Island's power was much stronger than he had imagined. This kind of expert should only exist in the stories. He did not notice the space around him was soundlessly twisting. What? A feeling of danger suddenly came. Before he could make any movements, his pupils suddenly expanded and his body froze where he stood. A bright red and slender line of blood silently appeared on his neck. Pew! Blood sprayed from the bloody line and scattered into the night to disappear. The youth in his field of view that was moving the sword became blurred. Who was he? With his last suspicion remaining, he lost alertness. Wei Xing's expression did not change. He took a step back, his wrist moving with the motion as the black sword slowly pushed back behind his body as though he was pushing it back into that invisible sheath. The sword created a string of sparks. When his wrist stopped moving, the black sword suddenly gave a loud hum full of unwillingness. The blackness of night visibly faded, decreasing until it disappeared. Sunlight fell down on everyone's bodies but none felt any warmth. That faint and empty sword essence caused them to unable to absorb one thread of warmth even now. There was no sharp killing intent, no bone-aching coldness, even that void was so faint it was hard to detect. The most attracting was that suddenly incoming night and the sky full of stars. Wei Xing's sword strike caused many to feel the desire to retreat. The unwilling hum of the black sword caused people's hearts to tremble. No one knew how that Xianxia had died. When had the bloody line on his neck appeared? This was a sword strike that was eerie and uncanny. Who was he? Everyone had the same thought. This kind of expert definitely could enter the expert rankings. Why had they never heard anyone mention him? Some with more active minds and more information suddenly recalled the disappearance of Ning Yi, Gu Minggong, and the skeletal remains of Yuan Xian. The details they had missed in the past floated into their mind and they seemed to understand. Turtle Island had this kind of expert, no wonder. Sui Mo was also filled with shock. When Wei Xing had made his strike, all the hairs on his body had uncontrollably stood on end. Ma Fan and the others gaped. Only Sui Mo, Shu Long, and Zhong Ru could maintain their composure. Eldest Xixiang was as inhuman as expected. Every time eldest Xixiang was wounded, his strength would definitely explode after he healed. Zuemo had originally felt proud at his progression in this past while, but in front of eldest Xixiang's sword strike that caused the sky and ground to change, his pride instantly disappeared. Eldest Xixiang had intimidated the entire battlefield. Taking advantage of the silence, Zuemo smiled darkly and said with bloodthirst, "Any that stays within 50 li of Turtle Island after 1 hour will be considered an enemy of Turtle Island." As he spoke, an hourglass appeared in front of him. The sand in the hourglass started to fall down. Once the words came out, many people's expressions changed and some were indignant. Zuomo's tone was as before, but the meaning in his words were extremely domineering and held an unquestionable tone. These people were all ones that had their own fame and reputations. No one had ever dared to give them the order to leave with such a domineering tone. However, many people chose to leave. The power that Turtle Island displayed far surpassed their expectations. Everyone had only known that Turtle Island Battalion had been skilled, and no one had known that Turtle Island also had many experts. The crispness of attack from Ma Fan's group of 5 caused them to feel astonishment. Wei Xing's uncanny sword strike had completely extinguished the greed in their hearts. They recovered their calmness. Their goal this time was the ruins. If they were killed at Turtle Island before going into the ruins, that would be very unprofitable. Wei Li Tian ordered without hesitation, "Retreat." The other Xiuzhe under his command all showed surprised expressions. They knew just how vicious Boss was. The other had spoken so unreasonably and with such dominance that Boss rationally should not have agreed. No matter how powerful that person with the black sword was, he was only one person. There was nothing to be afraid of. Only Xian's expression was unchanged. He didn't seem to be surprised at this outcome at all. Just as Wei Li Tian ordered a retreat, Leng Wei also ordered unhesitatingly, "Let's go." Leng Zhen asked with disbelief, "Go? We're going like this? If you don't want to die, leave." Leng Wei said faintly. Leng Xing jumped up and said, thrusting his neck up, "Boss, this makes us seem cowardly. The other just is scaring us and have scared us Wei. How will we live in the future? Can you beat the guy with the black sword?" Leng Wei asked in response. Leng Xing stopped, but he tried to bluster, "Even if I can't, I can hold up for a while." Leng Wei looked at him and said faintly, "I also cannot win over him. Not just him, the Diana Xiu we encountered that day is as powerful as I am. So what? We have so many people. Notice that Island Master, you also cannot win against him. Pay attention to that guy in armor next to the Turtle Island Master, you also cannot win." Leng Wei's tone was not polite. "Their battalion has not even come out. There are so many people here, do you want to enter the ruins?" Leng Wei interrupted Leng Xing's quibbling, "If you want to enter the ruins, don't provoke them." He turned around and threw back, "Those that do not leave will not enter the ruins." After almost an hour, there were only a few more than 20 Jindan left in the sky. They thought they were powerful enough and did not want to scurry away. However, when they found that only 20-something people remained, their expressions became ugly, especially when they saw the two groups of Wei Li Tian and Leng Wei who were most powerful also left. "Time's up." Zuemo grinned viciously at the people left. "I want to see who dares to attack," a Xiuzhe said with an excited expression. "When did this sky become owned by Turtle Island, idiot?" Zuemo spat out and his body disappeared. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Zuomo's group all disappeared. These Xiuzhe had never thought that Zuemo and the others really dared to attack and were unprepared. It wasn't just Wei Xing that had improved. Zhong Ru took out the crossed prayer wheel and slowly turned it. Bright sutra characters floated off the prayer wheel into the sky. As Zhongru chanted in a low voice, the golden characters slowly floated to a few shouja. When the sutra characters flew near their target, they seemed to be pinned to the air. The enemy felt their bodies suddenly feel impossibly heavy and it was hard to even move a finger. The sutra characters floating in the sky suddenly dropped dots of yellow sand. These tiny gold sand grains contained extremely great power. The smell of sky soil suddenly increased in the air. The 9-turn sky-earth disk had been completely merged into the prayer wheel. Zhongru had also merged the power of the 9-turn sky-earth disk into the Dhyana Shio's reincarnation illusory realm, calling it the sky-earth Dhyana realm. The power increased, and so did its wonders. Zhongru used wish power to wash each speck of sky-earth sand day and night. The prayer wheel, a talisman that had never appeared before in any records, gradually transformed as Zhongru forged it day and night. Even he was unable to control some of the transformations. In the last fight, he had comprehended many of the abilities of the attainment golden body. It was a 6th-grade Dhyana spell and contained many abilities. As the opponent was pulled into the Sky-Earth Dhyana realm, the other's Ling armor experienced 3 types of power, the Sky-Earth, the Dhyana presence, and wish power. It instantly shattered and before the Shouja could wail, he lost his life. The sutra characters in the air suddenly lit up like monsters that had just filled their stomachs and returned to the prayer wheel. Zhongru chanted lowly and spun the prayer wheel to rid the prayer wheel of the threat of evil energy. Among the crowd, the most attention-catching was Zwa Mo who had been consuming many dan lately had a great increase in his Ling power. This caused his level in the other 2 powers to grow greatly. His speed was like lightning, his power peerless in its dominance. He charged left and right like a human-shaped beast. Everywhere he passed, blood and flesh flew. The others had come up to his door shouting to fight and to kill. He had been irritated for a long time and did not have any mercy as he fought. He used all 6 transformations of the great Damo physique in turn. As he killed, he felt unspeakably comfortable and couldn't help but howl. He seemed to have plucked an invisible cord and many areas of the skills that had been blurry in the past suddenly became clear as though he could reach out and touch them. As though it was following the flow, the domineering midday blade in his hand suddenly disappeared, his consciousness bloomed and twisted like flowers and scrolls. Countless Yao arts flooded his chest and was almost going to burst out. At this moment, someone abrupt happened. Chapter 489, Ambush. A blinding light appeared beside his feet without any warning. His vision turned completely white and he was unable to see a thing. A dangerous and trembling presence was aimed straight at his brow and his heart jumped. Shocked, his body had almost unconsciously retreated. Ambush. Someone was ambushing him. Damn it. He had not even detected the other's existence. The shock he felt was indescribable. Zwa Mo had been through hundreds of the fights but this was the first time someone managed to ambush him from right in front. The light void wings were activated to their maximum power, time seemed to stretch out at this moment, and everything seemed so slow. That thread of intimidating killing energy was like glue. No matter how Zwa Mo dodged or tried to escape, it was tightly following him. The sharp and bone-chilling killing presence, the strong pressure that seemed to aim straight between his brow caused Zwa Mo's nerves to be tensed to their limits. The light void wings were furiously flapping at a remarkable rate, the air was howling in his ears and carried the exclamations of shock from Wei Sheng and the others, but Zwa Mo did not hear any of this. All of his attention was focused on that point of killing essence that was seemingly tangible. His 10 fingers seemed to be strumming the pipa as a string of blinding lights continuously expanded in front of him. Little Yao arts. At this crucial moment, what Zwa Mo could choose was only little Yao arts. Simple and instantaneous, this most basic Yao arts became Zwa Mo's only choice at the moment. Bam bam bam. The sound of breaking was like a drumbeat. That thread of intimidating murderousness was not affected at all. In front of it, the little Yao arts were like layers of papier-mâché, and the dot of black within the sky full of fragmented energies did not change at all. The dark and cold killing essence made him feel as though he was in a glacier and the blood inside his body seemed frozen. Terror was like a great poison that spread to every corner of Zhuomo's body. The god of death was so close to him, the rotten breath of the death gold almost breathing onto his face. Was he going to die? This thought uncontrollably appeared in his mind. Time seemed to stop at this moment, everything in the surroundings became silent. His chaotic consciousness became normal again. The killing essence was still bone-penetrating, but the terror inside had disappeared. Zhuomo entered a very strange state. In this moment, his mind was as clear as the water in a lake. The impulse that had accumulated due to the Yao arts suddenly erupted like a volcano. His fingers swiped through the motions as though they were out of his control. Strange paths, strange Ling power vibrations, strange feeling, but everything was so natural as though it was water flowing. 10 dots of light were like 10 spinning stars drawing out 10 serene blue lights. Complex Yao arts flowed past his mind. The serene blue light that his fingers were producing grew brighter. Zhuomo's mind was abnormally calm. The slender yet bright serene blue lights seemed to grow like bean sprouts and climbed onto Zhuomo's hands. His hands seemed to be covered in serene blue gloves of light. When these two hands met in the air, a light that was as blinding as sword energies suddenly exploded from in front of Zhuomo's chest. Arg! A howl of beast suddenly swept past with an ancient presence. As though there was a wasteland beast looking down authoritatively under a full moon. Archaic wasteland sacrificial art. The ambusher made a light sound. His body was like an earthworm that twisted strangely. The sky full of light suddenly retreated and it turned into a sword light that suddenly increased in speed and shot at Zhuomo. Wei Xing's heart sank down. His sword strike that had flipped day and night looked easy, but in reality, it was his masterpiece. It didn't just contain his recent comprehensions, it had also consumed the greater half of his Ling power. The strength of the ambusher far surpassed his imagination. Even if his Ling power was not used up, he may not be a match for the other if they faced each other in true combat, much less an ambush. This ambusher's sword light was grand, but the sword essence was cunning and poisonous. It was not similar to any sword essence he had seen before. The other had comprehension of sword essence that was even higher than Wei Xing's. Where had such a powerful enemy come from? But at this time, he could not attend to anything else. Wei Xing's black sword pointed at the other, the Ling power in his body boiling as it furiously flooded into the black sword. The ambusher suddenly twisted and bounced away strangely. A dark sword energy had suddenly appeared where he just had been standing as though a cut had been made on the sky. The ambusher seemed to have detected it a long time ago, and turned his head back with ease to stare at Wei Xing. Wei Xing saw a pale white mask, ugly and unmoving, tightly worn on the enemy's face. The pair of eyes within the eye slits were full of dark murderousness. The other suddenly grinned and the pale white mask was pulled into a strange smile that caused anyone who looked to feel a chill. Wei Xing's eyes blurred and he lost track of the other. But his pupils suddenly contracted. At this time the sword light viciously stabbed into the light in front of Zhuomo's chest. A beast's howl that carried an ancient presence suddenly spread outwards with Zhuomo as the center. The dust and smoke dissipated, leaving behind a shadow that was like a little mountain, an ancient colossal beast that appeared in everyone's vision. The two lantern-sized eyes were full of dignity. There was a bright sword energy held in its mouth. Zhuomo panted heavily, his hands covered in light, one position forward and one back as though he was trying hard to grab onto something. Sweat snaked down his forehead. His eyes were glaring, his hands trembling slightly as though he was using great strength. That bright sword energy was like a little snake that constantly struggled. The sword energy gradually dimmed until it disappeared. The wasteland beast that was like a little mountain crumbled soundlessly and also disappeared. Seeing Zhua Mo was fine, everyone released a breath. Then they all looked warily at the surroundings to stop that strange sword Xiao from making an ambush again. After a while, there was no movement and Zhua Mo sat down on his behind, only able to pant. From the moment he was ambushed until now, it was just the span of a blink of an eye, but the danger he experienced was something only Zhua Mo, who had been targeted on by the sword light, experienced. The line between life and death. He was just a hair's width away from death. Thinking about it now, he still felt fear. A group of Shuzha suddenly flew up from below and encircled Zhua Mo in the middle. Gongsun Cha had given the order after seeing Zhua Mo ambushed. Recovered, Zhua Mo forced a smile and said, "Such a powerful sword Xiao. We have really met an expert now." His smile was even uglier than crying. Without an exception, everyone else had terrible expressions. If something had happened to Darren just now, they would be unpardonable. But thinking about the sword Xiao that wore the pale white mask, everyone's hearts shook. How he had sneaked in front of Zhua Mo, how he had released that sword energy, how he had left, no one knew. Even Wei Xing only managed a brief glimpse before the figure blurred and he had lost the other's trace. From beginning to end, the other had been at great ease. Let's return to the island. Zhua Mo's group instantly returned to Turtle Island and opened the formation as soon as they were back. Fortunately, the formation had the ability to function as an alarm. If a person did not have a jade disc, they would be unable to enter the island. Otherwise, Zhua Mo would have to worry the assassin would be mixed among the crowd and wormed his way onto the island. Then it would be great trouble. In the cloud sea about 10 li from the island, a figure slowly rose from the cloud sea soundlessly. A pale white mask looked back at Turtle Island and then slowly sank into the cloud sea. "Have you found him?" Zhua Mo asked. Thoughts of the terrifying sword Xiao that ambushed him circled Zhua Mo's mind like a nightmare. He did not know why the other had not continued his ambush. The greater majority of being able to escape alive this time was due to his luck. If he encountered this guy again, Zhua Mo didn't dare to guarantee that his luck would be this good. The other was far more powerful than they were. Even Wei Xing honestly said his strength could not rival the other. Someone this powerful definitely could not be unknown. Having such a powerful assassin target him, Zhua Mo felt that he wouldn't be even to get a steady sleep, so he decided to get to the bottom of this matter. Therefore, when Zhua Mo returned to the island, he immediately sent out all his forces to investigate this person. He had paper crane messages with Liao Qi-chang, but he had not expected Liao Qi-chang to run to the island in person. Liao Qi-chang's expression was very strange. "This guy isn't not from Cloud Sea Jie." "Not from Cloud Sea Jie." Zhua Mo was slightly astonished. When Liao Qi-chang received the news that Zhua Mo had been ambushed, he had been greatly shocked. His connection with Turtle Island was relatively intimate and knew much more than regular people. Even Ning Yi and the others had not fared well on their hands, yet there was a person that was able to kill Zhua Mo. How could he not be shocked? His first thought was, this guy should not be from Cloud Sea Jie. His thought was quickly proven. The other was not from Cloud Sea Jie as he expected. But when he discovered the other's origins, he was even more shocked. He felt this was not an ordinary matter and made a trip specifically to Turtle Island. According to your narration, this person should be the famous masked assassin. This person is unusually strange and skilled in assassination. He is a very famous assassin. He's not famous in Cloud Sea Jie, but famous in the entire Four Realms. Liao Qi-chang's tone was slightly nervous. This powerful? Zhua Mo jumped in fright. Even more powerful than this. Liao Qi-chang licked his lips. He may be a Jindan, but what made him famous was that he had successfully assassinated a Yuanying, Long Hong, 5 years ago. This caused him to rank in the top 10 of Jindan assassins, top 10 among all Four Realms Jindan assassins. He is 7th now, and he has never failed against a Jindan target, including large sect disciples such as from your Kunlun. You are the first. Speaking of this, Liao Qichong was slightly excited. He did not pay attention to the gaping mouth of Zhuemo and continued, you are going to be famous now, even the masked assassin was unable to kill you, it would be difficult for you to not become famous. Ning Yi isn't anything, isn't even worthy of holding the other's shoes. There was no pride on Zhuemo's face, and his face was extremely ugly. Had successfully assassinated a Yuanying. My heavens! How had he provoked such a great personage? An assassin ranked 7th in all of 4 realms Jindan assassins. Zhuemo's face was ashen. Chapter 490, Apparition for the Remote Cloud Xijia. An assassin ranked 7th on the 4-realm heaven Jindan ranking was a great personage among personages. The 4-realm heaven was truly too enormous, so enormous that no one would pay any attention to the rankings at a usual time. When a truly famous expert suddenly appeared in Cloud Xijia, the shock that was produced could be imagined. It was not outrageous to use truly famous to describe this person. Even though the great majority had never heard the name of the masked assassin before, that did not hinder them from understanding the significance of the 7th-ranking Jindan assassin in all of 4-realm heaven. Even those Yuanying Xiaoxia showed shocked expressions that had not appeared for decades when they heard this name. Since the Yuanying were like this, then nothing had to be said more for Jindan Xiaoxia. Due to this, the news that the Turtle Island Master managed to stop the ambush of the masked assassin quickly spread through all of Cloud Xijia. Adding on that it was the first time the masked assassin had failed, this added a mysterious halo onto Zhuemo's body. It was worth pondering why the masked assassin appeared at this time. Had he also come for the Sun Shan Temple ruins? This caused everyone to increase their attention on the Sun Shan Temple. A ruin that could attract the 7th-ranking Jindan assassin, how could it be simple? Normal people just watched the spectacle and wanted the situation to become as large as possible. Those people that were preparing to enter and explore the ruins were extremely dispirited. The bigger the ruckus about the ruins, the more competitors they had. Thinking about the possibility of encountering the masked assassin, many people had thoughts of retreat. The appearance of the masked assassin caused the situation to have a slight change. Even the Yuanying Xiaoxia that had thought they would have almost certain success couldn't help but feel slightly unconfident. The masked assassin was a dangerous person that could kill a Yuanying. The other effect of this matter was related to Zhuemo. On the expert ranking of Cloud Xijia, the ranking of Turtle Island Master rocketed up and charged into the top 10 to rank at number 5. Wei Sheng also entered the top 10. His astounding sword strike that had reversed day and night caused him to enter the top 10 to rank at number 9. There were no people or animals within 100 li of Turtle Island. No one dared to target Turtle Island anymore. Even the 3 Yuanying ordered their subordinates to not provoke Turtle Island. If the battle with the Tian family could be said to have caused Turtle Island to enter everyone's eyes, then the fight this time caused Turtle Island to jump to becoming one of the most powerful factions in Cloud Xijia. Turtle Island also became the only factions that had 2 people in the top 10 expert ranking. Right now, Turtle Island's only worry was if the masked assassin would return. If the masked assassin did not return, there would not be problem, but if the masked assassin did not plan to let the matter go, could the Turtle Island Master escape the calamity? Many people were curious, how did the Turtle Island Master provoke the masked assassin? One was an unknown local faction, the other was a top expert that was famous in 4-realm heaven. The two did not seem to have a connection at all. Zhuemo also could not understand. He almost wrung out his mind but still did not learn anything. He wasn't happy at all at the increase in his ranking. If it was possible, he would give up his rank if he could not be enemies with the masked assassin. The other's strength far surpassed theirs. This was the first time Zhuemo had such a deep understanding of the difference in power with the other. Even when he faced Clear Sky Old Forefather, he had never felt so helpless. The assassin Xianxia that walked in the shadows were the enemies that were the hardest to deal with and the most bothersome. They would always strike a fatal blow when you were at your most careless and numb. You had to pay attention at every second to guard against their ambush that could occur at any moment. There is no good solution, so you cannot leave the island during this time. Gong Sun Cha looked at Suemo facing such an enemy. Lil Miss also did not have a solution. His methods were not effective. Suemo grimaced. We can only do this. The only thing he rejoiced about was that the meridional azure ether formation that he had spent so much effort to set up seemed worth the effort now. It became the barrier that Suemo trusted the most. Even if it was the masked assassin, unless he had some special talisman, he could not sneak into Turtle Island. The meridional azure ether formation was much more secure than Suemo had imagined. Hidden on Turtle Island, he was safe, but for Suemo, this feeling was terrible and suffocating. Even if the other was the 7th-ranked Jindan assassin. Strongly motivated, Suemo started to fanatically cultivate. Suemo was not the only one. Wei Sheng and the others started to madly cultivate as well. In these past few years, they had dominated in all their fights. Even though they had not been unstoppable, when had they been suppressed to the point it was so suffocating? The heated cultivation atmosphere spread on Turtle Island. At a place about 500 li from Su Ling City, the cloud sea started to violently stir. A golden light passed through the cloud sea and pointed at the sky. The parts of the cloud sea near the pillar of light seemed to boil and stir restlessly. The golden-colored light grew thicker, and the light even more blinding. On Turtle Island, everyone was attracted by such a strange scene. An enormous golden pillar of light stood between the sky and the cloud sea as though it was holding up the sky. Was it going to start? Suemo gazed at the light pillar and balled his hands. Cloud Sea Jia exploded. All of Cloud Sea Jia, in all the corners, people saw this scene. The pillar of light did not dim but grew brighter and thicker. In the span of a few short days, the area that the pillar of light covered reached a radius of 150 li. Everyone was deeply shocked by this colossal golden pillar of light. Once they flew within 1,000 li, they would increasingly feel the enormity of this pillar of light. No matter how powerful the Xianxia was, they would have a feeling that they were as insignificant as a flea when they flew close. Countless people departed from all directions towards Su Ling City like a flood. The great majority of them had not intended to go into the ruins but to observe this spectacular marvel from the distance. Yet this enormous golden pillar of light caused the hearts of many Xianxia that had not planned to enter the ruins to move. All factions gathered their people to come to Su Ling City. The little Su Ling City was filled with people. The 3 Yuanying became unusually low-key, and those arrogant and bold Jindan put their tails between their legs. There were too many people. If they were careless and attracted the anger of the public, even the greatest power could not help them. Many people tried to go closer to the light pillar but people quickly found that no matter how they tried, they could not get within 20 li of the light pillar. There was an invisible barrier that stopped them from going near. Some daring people tried to attack it. But all the attacks seemed to dissipate like mud entering the ocean and did not create any disturbance. This is really a great party. Li Shu gazed at the packed crowds, and the excitement on their faces as he sighed. Lu Zhen was slightly worried and said with self-blame, this subordinate did not accomplish the task. If the news had not been leaked, it would be the same if it had not leaked. Li Shu comforted in a warm tone. Look at this light pillar, it cannot be concealed. It is better like this, those that will go naturally will go, and those that won't will not be moved. Lu Zhen hurriedly said, Darren is right. He paused slightly and then said carefully, Darren, should we ask for more people? Li Shu shook his head. No need. The situation inside is complex, more people does not mean it is better. Do not worry, we have the elder. Even more, we have not prepared so many years for nothing. Seeing Li Shu's confidence, Lu Zhen's heart rested slightly. Upon further thought, he found it was true. With the great power of the sect, they had started T-Plan so many years ago, and definitely would have found many of the secrets. There were many elders skilled in divination within the sect, yet they only send one elder and Li Shu Shixiang, so they should be absolutely confident. For ruins like this, what was most important was not how powerful one was, but how much information one had. Let's wait 5 more days. Li Shu smiled slightly and with deep meaning. Shu Long's handsome face seemed slightly dark as he stared at the wall in front of him. He had actually been unable to do anything last time when Darren had been ambushed. This caused him to feel unprecedented humiliation. In the past, he had focused more on urging others to cultivate and did not obsess over individual strength. In his view, Darren did not lack for experts at his side. No matter if it was Wei Sheng or Zhong Ru, they were rare experts. But last time, Darren had almost died, and he felt great self-recrimination. In the end, it was just that he wasn't strong enough. Returning to the island, he burrowed into the cave and started to furiously cultivate. Even Wen and the other Xiaoxia were furiously cultivating, so much that they did not even go to look at the light pillar outside. They were only cultivating, continuously cultivating. Yet what Shu Long had not expected was that his cultivation was interrupted. "What is it?" he asked. "We cannot dig any further," a hardship guard stood out and said, "We do not know the reason. A few days ago, the granite suddenly became harder than usual and more difficult to dig. The deeper we dug, the harder it was to dig. Digging to here, we can't advance at all." Shu Long walked in front of the stone wall. They all lived inside the cave. The Yin Fiend presence inside the cave was extremely heavy and greatly beneficial for their cultivation. For all of Guard Camp, the previous cave had not been large enough, so Shu Long had decided to dig deeper. He later found that the rock had been permeated by the Yin Friends, and the process of digging was also a great help to their cultivation. So digging holes became one of the daily cultivation tasks of Hardship Camp. He hadn't expected a problem to occur to their daily cultivation method. Shu Long tapped the stone wall. He didn't even leave behind a finger mark. He took out his MO weapon and struck hard. Cling! Sparks flew. There wasn't even a trace left on the stone wall. Shu Long made a sound of surprise and reached out to touch the wall. It was unusually smooth. He noticed at this moment the stone wall in front of him was unusually smooth and did not look as though it was naturally formed at all. There was something strange. Chapter 491, Rock Walls. Mo examined the rock wall from top to bottom and occasionally rubbed his palm back and forth on it. In reality, he was muttering in low voices with the 2 old geezers, Pu Yao and Wei. "Do you recognize this? This thing definitely is not natural." Mo was like a curious baby. "Whoa, it really is hard." This rock wall was dark gray-green and did not look any different than normal soil, but no matter if it was a flying sword or a MO weapon, they could not leave a mark behind. "It seems as though someone has reinforced it with Shen power," Wei hesitated and then said. Pu Yao's enchanting voice sounded. He was slightly shocked. "Yes, it is Shen power." "Shen power?" Mo was slightly disappointed as he muttered, "I had assumed this was a treasure. Such a big treasure, it would be very valuable." "So it is just reinforced with some Shen power?" he then asked curiously, "What is Shen power?" "That it's this powerful. The so-called Shen power is the power that ancient warriors used. Do you remember the strange corpse from the sealed extinction battlefield? What he used was Shen power. Shen power is different when compared to any present power, and is enormously powerful," Wei explained patiently. "If your power can go up another level, you may produce Shen power," Pu Yao suddenly said. "I produce Shen power?" Mo first still and then reacted. So this Shen power is the three powers merged together. Three powers merged together is not Shen power. But Ling power, spiritual consciousness, and the Mo physique are all powers that were derived from Shen power. No one actually knows what the ancient Shen power is really like. I had thought to be able to see it from the strange corpse, but his power was traceless and I could not see it. Seeing that Pu Yao showed no intentions of speaking, Wei knew that the duty of explaining fell on his shoulders, so he could only continue speaking. So it is like this. Mo seemed to only partially understand. He suddenly paled. Is there also someone as powerful as the strange corpse behind the rock wall? Pu Yao really could not stop himself and said scornfully, do you think old monsters like the strange corpse are like common as lettuce on sale at the market? That another one will just easily jump out. The ancient tribes have fallen for an unknown number of years, they are extinct. Just one of them being able to survive until now is great luck. Then why is there Shen power here? Mo pointed at the wall and asked with innocence. Pu Yao snorted coldly and said, there are many things that can contain Shen power. Ancient Shen treasures, ruins that are relatively well conserved, they can all preserve Shen power. Ruins? Mo's eyes lit up. Would it be the Sun Shen temple behind this rock wall? The news of the Sun Shen temple had spread out long ago. Also, that enormous golden pillar of light was very close to Turtle Island and they could see it without even raising their heads. A pillar of light with a radius of 150 li was like a colossus that emanated extreme pressure. The light pillar did not extinguish during the day or night. Turtle Island was greatly affected and even their nights were as bright as day. Even though Mo had resolved long ago not to enter the fight over benefits, but this strange rock wall made him uncontrollably think of the Sun Shen temple ruins. Wei said deeply, this might be a possibility. Mo's mind became alert. Even though he did not plan on joining the fight, he would not refuse treasure if it was delivered to his door. Also, if the ruins were truly behind the rock wall, that meant that Turtle Island was connected to the ruins. They could secretly enter. The more Mo thought, the hotter his blood burned. Pu Yao said with a cold smirk, even if the ruins are behind this wall, you cannot enter. This rock wall is filled with Shen power, and is much harder than normal talismans. If you cannot break through the rock wall, how can you enter the ruins? Mo's heart was instantly cooled. After being silent for a moment, he said reluctantly, is there no solution at all? There are methods, Wei said gravely. Like grabbing the last stalk of life-saving grass, Mo suddenly became alert and said, what method? Quick, speak. Wei looked at him. You have three powers merged as one, if you progress one more step, you may actually comprehend Shen power. If you can comprehend Shen power, this rock wall will be an easy matter for you. Comprehend Shen power? How to comprehend? Quick, tell me. Mo stared with begging eyes at Wei. Pu Yao barked a laugh and said disdainfully, ha. Comprehend Shen power? Wei said with slight helplessness, this is only a theoretical possibility. Shen power is extremely repels us. I do not know what Shen power really is like. If it wasn't that all three powers were derived from Shen power, there wouldn't even be a theoretical possibility. As for comprehending Shen power, you need to rely on yourself to explore. Don't waste your efforts. Use the energy to cultivate, Pu Yao said ambiguously from the side. His body suddenly disappeared as he threw down, so boring, you guys play on your own. Seeing the situation, Wei could only shrug and spread his hands in helplessness. I only know this much. Mo came out of the empty sea of consciousness. Rubbing the mirror-smooth rock wall, his thoughts drifted. Shen power, it sounded so unreliable. But if he succeeded? Countless rare talismans, countless Jingshi and other treasures floated past Mo's eyes. Ruins. This was the ruins of a Shen temple. An ancient Shen temple, how could it not have some talismans? Thinking about how he didn't have many acceptable talismans, Xuemo instantly felt restless. Damn it! He'll do it. The worst case was just wasting a few days' worth of time. Gritting his teeth, Xuemo decided to try. In any case, this was a business without any cost, and he couldn't lose anything. If the ruins opened and he had not succeeded, he would seal this place and set down a formation to prevent people from entering the island through this way. Xu Long and the others stared at each other. They found that Darren's hands were rubbing here and there on the rock wall with a flushed face. He looked very strange and slightly perverted. Everyone shook in unison and the words flashed across their minds, so scary. Two figures suddenly appeared in the empty sea of consciousness. It is not good that we are fooling him like this. Wei was slightly hesitant. Fool him? Where did we fool him? Isn't that Shen power? Didn't the three powers descend from Shen power? Pu Yao had a righteous expression. But, what if he doesn't succeed? Wei halted his words. Doesn't succeed? Pu Yao rolled his eyes and said irresponsibility. There is no loss to us. Pausing, he then said even more irresponsibly, there's no loss to him either. That's true. Wei was reassured. The two disappeared at the same time. Shen power. Damn it. What was Shen power? Xuemo gritted his teeth as he repeatedly muttered as though he was possessed. He had gone over the rock wall thousands of times with his hands and hadn't found anything. It may have been that he had touched it too much, but he felt that the rock wall was much smoother than before and felt like a mirror. He asked for help from Wei, but Wei always had a burdened face. He asked for help from Pu Yao, but this guy didn't help him, and even scorned him to the point that Xuemo wanted to bomb him into smithereens. Gu has principles. Xuemo recited 100 times and recovered his fighting spirit. He pulled up his sleeves and used the posture of the poison ivy, gluing himself to the wall, for a new round of fighting. Unless life ends, the battle does not stop. The wind howls, the river is cold, the hero climbs the wall and never to return. Shen power, where are you? Xuemo did not discover anything in the entire day. No matter if he was touching, hitting, or hammering, no matter what he did, the rock wall did not react at all. This rock wall was also very strange. No matter if Xuemo used Ling power, spiritual power or the Mo physique, the rock wall would produce a strong repellent power that forcibly pushed him aside. Xuemo tried to adjust the three powers, and even tried to use all three at the same time. The rock wall was not as resistant when he did this, but the three powers were like mud thrown into the ocean, and did not even cause a ripple. The rock wall was still that rock wall, unchanged. Bro, give a response. Xuemo wanted to cry. He felt he was like the mouse pulling the turtle and did not know where to start. Xu Long felt it would be better for less people to see Darren like this, so he hurried everyone else out. Out of consideration for safety, he still arranged for people to stand guard outside to prevent any accidents from happening to Darren. After arranging all this, Xu Long threw himself back into his crazy cultivation. All of guard camp was immersed in this furious cultivation atmosphere. It wasn't just them, Vermilion Bird camp was also the same. For this, Golden Crow camp had specially forged all kinds of lingdan that were open to everyone so that each person had a daily ration. The incident of Xuemo's attempted assassination had deeply stimulated every single person on Turtle Island. If something happened to Darren, the consequences. No one dared to imagine. Xuemo was deathly exhausted after working for a whole day. He and the rock wall seemed to be at odds. The power of the rock wall was not ferocious or offensive, but it greatly expended his three powers. Unknowingly in this struggle, the power inside Xuemo had been completely wrung out without a drop left. When Xuemo realized this, he was so tired he didn't even want to move a finger. Leaning against the rock wall, he fell into a deep sleep. How long has it been since he slept like a normal person? Mo couldn't remember. As his power grew, his need for sleep decreased by the day. After cultivating the great Mo physique, he didn't even need sleep. He was in a heavy sleep like a child. The dark cave was silent and an undetectable light suddenly floated on the rock wall. The light was extremely weak and carried a slight green as it slowly permeated Mo's body. Deep in slumber, Mo did not detect it. The speed of the green energy's permeation was not fast and it was soundless. Suddenly, Mo's dantian and the space between his brows suddenly lit up. At the same time, his body lit up with a faint golden energy. At this most crucial time, Mo's three powers started to cooperate to stop the green energy. The speed of the green energy's permeation instantly slowed. The lights on Mo's body continuously changed. Four kinds of power, four kinds of light, all lit up and dimmed, changing constantly. There was no pain on his face. He had an infant-like smile on the corner of his mouth and he was in a sweet sleep. He was having a strange dream. Chapter 492, Greenwood Secret Realms. Mo was having a very strange dream. There were endless clouds and water over the remote swamp, the howls of unknown wild beasts sounding among the waist-high grasses, long multicolored birds with their long tails flying around the high and green forests. The sky suddenly darkened, Mo raised his head and inhaled sharply. A large and strange-looking unidentified bird slowly passed over his head, like a black cloud. Mo had never seen such a gigantic bird before. In front of it, the wasteland beast was like a little child. Its spread wings covered the sun and sky, creating darkness, and everywhere it passed, it was as though night had come. He dumbly gaped with an upraised face. Before he could recover from his shock, a low voice suddenly came from behind him. "Who are you? Why have you invaded my Greenwood secret realm? Leave now, and your life will be spared." Mo jumped in fright and hurriedly turned around. He found that a blurry figure had appeared near him at an unknown time. This person was clearly near him, but no matter how he tried, Mo could not make out his figure. The other's figure was a blur. Greenwood Secret Realm? Where is this place? Who are you? Why am I here? Mo asked dazedly. He still hadn't managed to react and understand how he had appeared here. He tried to recall, but his memories seemed to be blank. The other did not seem to expect Mo to ask such a question and was instantly stunned. He said to himself, "Who am I? You don't even know who you are." Mo asked curiously. He suddenly found the other was especially slow. "Who am I? Who am I?" the dark figure recited over and over, his tone slightly panicked. He could not remember. Mo suddenly felt the other was pitiful and felt some empathy due to being afflicted with the same predicament himself. His features had been changed and his memories erased, so all of his memories before Wukong Mountain had disappeared. Don't rush, don't rush." Mo hurriedly comforted the other, "It's all right if you cannot remember. A man's name is meaningless in this world." The other stopped and seemed to ponder Mo's words. Mo said in a familiar tone, "Brother, what is this Greenwood Secret Realm? Are you familiar with this place?" "Of course I am familiar," the other unconsciously replied, "the Greenwood Secret Realm is the Greenwood Secret Realm, the place that I guard." "So this is brother's territory." Mo's eyes instantly lit up and he flattered, "No wonder I feel that big brother is of such extraordinary bearing. From the presence, you do not seem like the average person. These days, anyone with territory is a great person. Big brother, you are too strong. Since this is big brother's territory, big brother has to cover little brother." It may have been that he was shaken by Mo's words or that he still hadn't recovered from the conundrum of who he was, but he paused when facing Mo's flattery and then asked dumbly, "What is cover?" "That is if there is wine, everyone drinks together, and if there is food, everyone eats together, Suemo said with a thick face. He was not speaking nonsense, he just felt that the other held no enmity towards him. It may have been that the other also had amnesia that Suemo found a thread of intimacy with the other. This kind of feeling was very rare for Suemo. The shadow made a sound of acknowledgement without real understanding. The blurry figure started to clear and Suemo finally saw the other's true features. A head full of bright green hair that extended to the shoulders, a handsome but thin face, the features were exquisite as though they were carved. The black and shining eyes were as deep as the dark night that stared at Suemo with interest. The clothing he wore was made from countless black-green vines with the leaves as armor that were layered beautifully. As expected of Big Brother. So handsome that women will have to use illusory formations. Suemo gave another piece of flattery. After saying this, he couldn't help but feel a sense of tragedy. Every person around him was extraordinarily handsome and as their boss, there was too much pressure on him. No wonder it had been such a long time since he had encountered those beautiful women in illusory formations, the ones that increased a person's heartbeat and the flow of blood. It was probably related to this. Women use illusory formations. The other had a confused expression. He clearly did not know what Suemo was speaking about. Suemo did not explain and looked in all directions as he asked curiously, "Big Brother, how did I get here?" "This is the Greenwood secret realm of the Sun Shan Temple, are you here to explore the Sun Shan Temple?" The other suddenly lost his woodenness, his eyes as sharp as knives that seemed to pierce Suemo's heart. Suemo shook and his memories came back like a flood. He instantly remembered everything. "This is the Sun Shan Temple," Suemo said with bewilderment. "I was clearly studying Shan power by touching the rock wall. Have I comprehended Shan power?" "Comprehend Shan power?" The green-haired male's brow creased. "Shan power is innate, how can there be comprehension?" "Shan power is innate?" Suemo's head shook like a rattle drum. "I never heard of anyone born with Shan power. It might be that the ancient era is different than the cultivators now. Shan power was lost a long time ago. What we cultivate now is Ling power, spiritual consciousness, and Mo physique. Shan power is lost?" The green-haired male stilled. "Tens of thousands of years, it would be strange if it was not lost," Suemo muttered. In reality, he didn't have good feelings regarding ancient things. Even the archaic wasteland sacrificial art that was from just a few thousand years ago had tortured him to the point he wanted death, much less an ancient power like the soul-setting divine light. Tens of thousands of years, so it has been tens of thousands of years, the green-haired male murmured to himself, his expression lost. "Big Brother, are you all right?" Suemo asked carefully. The green-haired male did not pay attention to him. A long while later, he gave a long sigh and said, "So the Sun tribe is also gone?" Suemo nodded. "Gone a long time ago. There are no tribes now, no totems. I've gone to the sealed extinction battlefield, there is a patch of gold crystal sand sea there, it should be the place that a warrior of the Sun tribe fell. Oh, I also saw the Sun crystal seed." Suemo recalled the Sun crystal seed that he had gotten from the sealed extinction battlefield. After the strange corpse sealed the Sun crystal seed, it was like a normal crystal ball. He only knew this was something good, but up until now, he did not know how to use it. The strange corpse only told him this was a good item, but Suemo couldn't even determine its grade, and didn't know when he could use it. Wealth should not be shown. Suemo did not know if the other would be greedy, so he didn't plan on taking it out. Sun crystal seed, as strong as the Sun tribe is, it cannot escape the ravages of time. The green-haired male sighed and then he suddenly raised his head to look at Suemo with a wry smile. "Even if I take it, your Sun crystal seed is useless to me. Do not worry that I will take it." Suemo almost choked on air. He was shocked inside, and the next words the green-haired man almost caused his soul to depart. A person that has the power to seal the sun crystal seed is very strong, the green-haired male said lightly. Even with Suomo's thick face, he felt unable to bear up with being exposed, but what he was shocked even more at was the power of the green-haired male. The other was even able to examine what was inside his ring. How great was his power! No wonder you were able to enter here, the green-haired male said to himself, fate naturally occurs. Suemo was confused and couldn't help but ask, Big brother, what are you talking about? The green-haired male suddenly raised his head and smiled slightly. Your luck is pretty good, come inside with me. Suemo felt his vision blur and then he was at a different place. When he looked around, his mouth instantly opened and could not close. Looking around, he saw endless dense forests. Tree crowns formed a vast ocean of trees. He was able to see ancient Yao beasts suddenly appear and disappear among the ocean of trees. Suemo was on the crown of an enormous tree. What was strangest was that there were 7 suns on the sky above his head that were like 7 enormous fireballs hanging on the firmament. This is the Greenwood secret realm, the green-haired male said faintly. There was a transparent bubble in his hand and inside it was a miniature tree ocean. Greenwood secret realm? Suemo asked. The Sun tribe was one of the strongest tribes, and their temples were spread across the land. See the 7 suns above your head? They symbolize the status of this Shin temple. The highest ranked Shin temple will have 10 suns. The green-haired male slowly said, the Shin temple is primarily fire-oriented and so it has gold, wood, water, and earth realms positioned to guard the 4 cardinal directions of the temple. Each secret realm has a defender, and I am the defender for Greenwood secret realm. Suemo gaped. I'm not some big brother, the green-haired male said with a bitter smile, those that guard the secret realms are experts that the Sun tribe have captured from other tribes. I remember who I am now. I am the son of the Green Vine tribe, Qingling. The realm masters of the 3 other secret realms are also experts of other tribes. Suemo was even more stunned. He finally seemed to understand a bit of how powerful the Sun tribe had been in the past. The Sun tribe has fallen, we will also die. Qingling had an expression of release. Suemo jumped. Why is it like this? All of us had Jinji set into us. The Sun tribe has fallen, so theoretically, we should have died long ago. But the Shin temple was suddenly closed down in the past and was blocked off from the outside world. It also blocked off the power of the Jinji. Now that the Shin temple is going to open and see the light of day again, the power of the Jinji will not be blocked any longer. The green-haired male's tone was nonchalant. Seeing Suomo's panicked expression, he comforted, this is a kind of release for us. The Shin temple has been closed off for so many years, without the power of the totem, it is a fate worse than death when the Jinji causes a backlash every decade. He did not want to speak more of the topic and said, you have the sun crystal seed so you should not have any problem inside the Shin temple if you do not go to places too dangerous. The Sun tribe had been dominant for a time and there are countless treasures inside the Shin temple. Even though much has been destroyed but there should be some things remaining, this is an opportunity for you. However, before that, you need Shin power. These words were like a basin of cold water that poured from head to toe. Suomo's heart was cold. Why did it still need Shin power? Seeing the expression on Suomo's face was as though he was going to cry without tears, the green-haired male said with a smile, you have the sun crystal seed. Helping you will not betray the Jinji of the Shin temple. I can help you think of a way with Shin power. Suomo's eyes instantly lit up and he hurriedly said, what way? Chapter 493, Qinglin, Elder. Lu Shu's respectful voice came from outside the door. Come in. The wooden door creaked open without any wind. Li Shu respectfully walked in and first bowed towards Elder Shen. What? Looking at a Shu's face, it seems that you are worried about something. Elder Shen asked Li Shu with a warm expression. Li Shu was an inner sect disciple and deeply liked by the sect leader, so even he had to give him some face. I'm not afraid that Elder will laugh. But for some reason, this disciple feels slightly unconfident. Li Shu grimaced. He had only taken over this mission in the recent few years, but he knew more than Elder Shen. From the moment the location of the ruins had been divined, the sect had sent Lu Zhen and the others to set up Su Ling sect. All the signs indicated that the sect wanted the Sun Shen Temple ruins. He finally learned later that there was a wondrous treasure inside the Sun Shen Temple ruins that was extremely important to the sect. However, he did not know what treasure it was. For this, the sect even sent out a Yuanying elder. In his experience during the many years he had been in the sect, the Yuanying elders were all in deep seclusion and only focused on cultivation. It was hard to even see their face. This was the first time he saw a Yuanying elder out on a mission. It was possible to see from this just how much importance the sect placed on this mission's success. If there was any misstep in the mission this time, he naturally would not escape the judgment of unable to carry out matters. This would be extremely disadvantageous for his future in the sect. The sect leader paid great attention to him, but in reality, there were many disciples like him. Elder Shen said with a smile, "A Shu does not need to worry." Before leaving, the sect leader made a special divination and did not see any sudden changes. As for the masked assassin, even though he has some small fame, but this old man has a slight grasp on the situation. The other two Yuanying have pretty good cultivation, but in other matters, they amount to just that. In his tone, he was extremely disdainful of the two Yuanying from Cloud Sijie. The worry on Lu Shu's face decreased greatly. The sect leader's godly divination had never been disproven before. Just yesterday, he had received the sect leader's paper crane. There was only gentle motivation on the paper crane, and nothing else. If there really was change, how could the sect leader not know? It seemed that he was really worrying too much. Elder is right, losing composure like this disciple needs more training, Li Shu said. Elder Shen was not concerned and said with a smile, "A Shu's personality is cautious." Not bad, not bad. When this old man was the same age as a Shu, this one was even less skilled at keeping one's composure. There are 4 more days until the Shen Temple opens. A Shu should have a good rest in these days to be in the best condition. Yes. Li Shu responded. The elder's tone was warm, but the meaning in the words was still for him to stop thinking nonsense. There should not be anything that would go wrong in the span of 4 days. "I heard you failed," a middle-aged person with a white face and no beard said with a smile, "that is rare. If this spreads, this person might become famous." In front of him, the masked assassin was wordless like a wooden puppet, and the pale white mask was frightening to look at. "Why did you think of attacking this person? Did you discover something?" the middle-aged male asked with curiously. He had jumped in fright when he received the news. He and the masked assassin had worked together for a long time and he understood the other well. The masked assassin walked in the darkness but was not a murderous person. Other than the targets of assassination, he almost never acted against other people. He had actually attacked a complete stranger. How could he not be shocked? What was even more shocking was that he had failed. The middle-aged male's first response when he heard this was, "Impossible." Even when the topic had heated up later on, he still did not believe it until now. The response of the masked assassin proved the truth. Intuition, the masked assassin treated words as though they were worth gold and gave the one-word answer. Intuition. The middle-aged male was shocked. He had thought of countless possibilities, but this was not among them. "He will affect my target." The masked assassin's voice was hoarse and unpleasant to hear, like the sound of sandpaper rubbing. "Affect your target?" The middle-aged male was astonished. But as one who was familiar with the other, he instantly understood what the other meant. "You mean that you intuitively feel that he would affect our matter?" "Yes," the masked assassin responded. The middle-aged male became silent. He knew that the masked assassin had many curious qualities. This was also one of the reasons he never failed. The masked assassin's intuition felt that the other would affect their target. This caused the middle-aged person to feel it was fantastical. But for some reason, the middle-aged male believed slightly in it. Should we think of a way to kill him? The middle-aged male inquired. Formation is strong, the masked assassin said. Then what? The middle-aged male asked. Don't know. The middle-aged male was speechless. This method is very simple, it is applying the sun crystal seed to your body, Wang Lin explained. This thing is useful. Xuemo took out the sun crystal seed. Since the other had found it, there was no reason to keep hiding it. Your power is not enough, and cannot take in the sun crystal seed. The person who sealed the sun crystal seed must also have thought this, Wang Lin continued, but he probably would not have thought that you would come across a Sun Shan temple. Xuemo's eyes were perked up in fear of missing a word. The sun crystal seed is the seed of the Sun tribe's totem and used to nurture the totem warriors of their tribe. The totem warriors were strong, but they also had great constraints. Since the Sun tribe is gone now, and so is the belief of the tribe members, there is no totem power, and you cannot become a totem warrior. Xuemo was instantly greatly disappointed. After all this stuff had lost its effect. Seeing the disappointment on Xuemo's face, Wang Lin couldn't help smiling. You may not be able to become a totem warrior, but the sun crystal seed itself is a rare and precious treasure in our world. It naturally has its own extraordinary properties. Do you know how the sun crystal seed forms? Xuemo finally became spirited again. How does it form? Each generation of totem warriors from the Sun tribe would try all they can to go to those primitive worlds, or places of chaos to search for unformed suns. They would first seal them into crystals, and then forge them day and night using the power of belief. 50 years later, it would become a sun crystal seed. Xuemo gaped on hearing this. An unformed sun. Motherfucker, so GE is holding a little sun. Each sun crystal seed is a priceless treasure. If the Sun tribe did not fall and die out, how could this sun crystal seed end up in the hands of someone else? Speaking of this, Wang Lin became slightly emotional. He shook his head and then said, "Your luck is pretty good to be able to encounter such an object, and also a person that could seal this object. Now you have also encountered a Sun Shan temple that has not disappeared. Maybe there really is fate." Seeing Xuemo's shocked face, Wang Lin grinned. He had a pretty good feeling about Xuemo. This person seemed slippery of the tongue and slightly cunning but still had a pure heart. The belief power in this sun crystal seed probably has dissipated. If another 10,000 years passes, it may form another sun. In the future, you have to remember not to reveal the fact you possess the sun crystal seed to prevent a calamity from falling on you. Hearing this, Xuemo nodded furiously. In the past, he only knew that this object was probably extraordinary, but he did not know how this was useful. After learning this, he finally understood how valuable of a gift the strange corpse had given him. Originally, the sun crystal seed needs to be worshipped at the sacrificial altar before it can be absorbed. But the sacrificial altar in the Shan temple has been abandoned for a long time. So we have to use a stupid method. As Wang Lin spoke, a jade-like water droplet suddenly condensed at his fingertip as he gently poked Xuemo's forehead. Boom! Xuemo felt a coolness spread from his brow and roll downwards. His entire body was unspeakably comfortable, and his mouth and nose was filled with the scent of fresh flora. "This greenvine mystical water is your big brother's meeting gift to you," Wang Lin said with a smile. His face was slightly pale. "It is very lacking compared to the sun crystal seed, don't look down at it." Xuemo was very moved. His nose became sore as he made a deep bow and said sincerely, "Big brother." Wang Lin held him up and had a happy expression. After muddling tens of thousands of years, I have no regrets in this life to encounter a brother again. He then said, this drop of green vine mystical water was a harvest from an old vine that was 10,000 years old. If brother can absorb it well, it will be of great benefit. Xuemo could only nod dumbly. He suddenly took out a pile of treasures he usually treasured as though they were his life and said, Big brother, take a look. If there is something useful, please take it. Oh, brother has many good things, Wang Lin said with a smile as he flipped through. This broken arrow is probably the weapon of the totem warrior from the archer tribe. This broken bell should be the greatest treasure of the Eastern Water tribe and is called the Celestial Bell. This black rock is the Nether Ghost Core, the greatest treasure of the Nether Ghost tribe. It is a pity that this brother can just barely recognize them and I do not know how to use them. This is all things I picked up from the sealed extinction battlefield. My friend said that is the place many warriors died, Xuemo said. These treasures had all been obtained when Xuemo had followed the strange corpse out of the sealed extinction battlefield. They had gone through many places of death similar to the gold crystal sand sea. The strange corpse didn't have much interest in these objects and gave them all to Xuemo, so that is the case. Wang Lin nodded. The sealed extinction battlefield, as expected of the battle of sealed extinction. The grave of so many warriors, with a long sigh, Wang Lin pushed the objects in front of Xuemo. This brother accepts brother's good intentions, but I will not be able to use these things. Brother, keep them on you and remember to not easily show them to others. Xuemo instantly said, Big brother, pick a few. There really is no use. Wang Lin pushed the objects back in front of Xuemo and said, this brother does have something to request. What? Big brother, say it. Xuemo said unhesitatingly. If brother has free time in the future, can you go to this place to look? There may be descendants of mine here. If they are lucky and are still alive, brother, please help look after them for me. Wang Lin pointed again and Xuemo felt a Jia map appear in his mind. Seas turn to mulberry fields, everything probably has changed. Shitty, do not deliberately go looking. If you encounter them, just giving them a helping hand and it is enough, Wang Lin said. No problem. Xuemo nodded heavily. He decided inside that he would definitely go to this place to search. Wang Lin smiled slightly and reached out a hand. Brother, lend the sun crystal seed to me for use. Xuemo hurriedly gave the sun crystal seed to Wang Lin's hand. At this time, a bright green light suddenly came from Wang Lin's hand and wrapped around the sun crystal seed, the other end of the light entangling around Xuemo. Chapter 494, Awaken. The bright green light was tender and glistening as its threads burrowed into the sun crystal seed. The dim sun crystal seed started to violently shake as though there was an ancient beast howling within it. Wang Lin's expression was grave, his black eyes extremely bright like the stars in the night sky. His green hair moved despite the lack of wind and floated freely. The sun crystal seed suddenly released a blinding light. Countless sharp golden energies suddenly shot out like swords. The blinding red light flowed out of the sun crystal seed following the green light and into Xuemo's body. Xuemo suddenly felt his mind explode. Countless burning flows that were like lava charged into his mind. A heart-tearing pain came from the bottom of his soul. He didn't even have time to wail before he lost consciousness. At the other end of the green light, Xuemo's eyes were tightly closed, and clearly had fainted. His body floated uncontrollably in the air. The blinding red light shrouded Xuemo. It quickly found an opening and burrowed in through Xuemo's mouth and nose. This burst of red light came extremely quickly. In a blink, it burrowed completely into Xuemo's body. Xuemo's hair suddenly started burning. Flames shot out of Xuemo's skin and in a blink, he became a person of fire. At this time, a thread of water suddenly rose from Zhuomo's dantian to combat the flames. It was the greenvine mystical water that Qin Lin had gifted Zhuomo. The unordinary red light rampaged in Zhuomo's body and had suddenly encountered an enemy. But this drop of mystical water was not ordinary either. Qin Lin had harvested it from a 10,000-year-old vine. After being nurtured for tens of thousands of years, it was extremely pure. The sun crystal seed was domineering, but since its owner had died tens of thousands of years ago, it was not maintained and was lacking compared to in its past. With the improvement on one side and the degeneration on the other, the two were evenly matched at the moment. The sun crystal seed was forged from the embryo of a sun, and was naturally domineering. Even if it had been tens of thousands of years, and it was greatly damaged, this dominance had not disappeared. Encountering a strong enemy, its dominance was stimulated and its fiery presence was released. The fire on Zhuomo's body rose and shot up. A high-temperature shockwave of air swept outwards with Zhuomo as the center. The enormous tree under their feet turned to dust. Everywhere the wave of air passed, the flora turned to dust and the ground started to melt. As expected of the sun crystal seed. Qin Lin laughed lightly. Looking at Zhuomo's face, his thoughts suddenly floated away and those distant and blurry memories seemed to gradually become clear in front of him as though they were swept of dust. Brother. A young and unfamiliar face became clear in his mind. The distant emotions instantly filled his heart. He turned his face and gazed at Zhuomo's unconscious face. That young and unfamiliar face in his heart seemed to gradually merge with Zhuomo's face. His heart that had not moved for thousands of years seemed to be plucked. He smiled. He stretched out his right arm and pointed at the sky. A shining dot of light suddenly appeared in the sky like a star lighting up. A slender and straight golden pillar shot down, from the distant horizon, through the endless void of the firmament above their heads, with the glory of tens of thousands of years. It shot rapidly towards the ground and the ray of light accurately struck the finger Qin Lin had raised up. Boom! A light sound that shook the surroundings. Qin Lin's body shook as though he was struck by lightning. A vast and writhing power suddenly expanded with him as the center. Pia pia pia. The enormous trees that were dozens of zhang thick were easily cut down as though they were slender rods. The wave of air was destructive and everywhere it passed, the ground rippled and trees flew. All of Greenwood's secret realm was violently shuddering. Under the pure golden ray of light, Qin Lin's eyes flashed with an unspeakable light like a burning star. That free smile carried contentment and warmth. He did not tell Zhuomo that he was the only defender of the four realms that had preserved his intelligence. The other three people's minds had been lost through the thousands of years, and became monsters that only had instinct and murderous intent. In the entire Shen temple, he was the only one that had clarity of mind. The loneliness of tens of thousands of years, how long it was. He did not tell Zhuomo when the Sun Shen temple finished opening, the guardians of the realm like him would burn like the suns at the end of their lives, burning as never before, burning away their life. He also did not tell Zhuomo that in these tens of thousands of years, he had gone into every corner of the Shen temple. The Shen temple that only had him left meant that he could use a portion of the power of the Shen temple. Maybe this was fate. He could not stop the Shen temple from activating. But this was also fate that he encountered a brother. Tens of thousands of years, it was long enough. Under the gold light, he smiled slightly. The Shen temple violently trembled, rocks rolling on the abandoned sacrificial altar. The Shen scripts that were covered in dust and cobwebs lit up. The serene light started to pulse as well, quickly spreading to every corner of the Shen temple. The entire Shen temple started to tremble. After sleeping for tens of thousands of years, the power that once represented the greatest glory of an era was woken from its deep slumber. Just preparing to rest, Li Shu suddenly felt the ground under his feet tremble and couldn't help but pause. Earthquake. Abruptly, he detected a peerlessly dominant presence suddenly explode nearby. This presence was absolutely dominant, the light like the sun in the middle of the day such that people were unable to face it directly. Li Shu was astounded and hurried out of the room. When he charged out of the room, the shocking scene in front of him stunned him completely. "Don't know," the middle-aged man said urgently, "this time, I have spent a great price to get this piece of information. If I cannot find that treasure, it would be a great loss." The masked assassin sat woodenly without a word. The middle-aged male was impatient but he didn't dare to direct his anger at the masked assassin. He had a pained expression. He had originally thought that with the masked assassin present, it would be an easy task, but this group of people with unknown origins popped up out of nowhere. He could not let it go. At this time, the ground suddenly shuddered. What sort of place is this? They have earthquakes. In a bad mood, the middle-aged male swore. Suddenly, a peerlessly domineering presence exploded without warning. The pressure brought with the terrifying power was like an enormous stone on everyone's chests, pushing them down uncomfortably. The middle-aged male was greatly shocked. He was just going to ask the masked assassin when he found that the masked assassin had already disappeared. He hurriedly charged out of the room. When he saw the figure of the masked assassin, he was slightly reassured. When he directed his gaze towards the direction the power had erupted from, he seemed to be struck by lightning and stunned where he stood. The enormous light pillar that was 150 li in radius was continuously shrinking. Everyone present had keen eyes, and instantly found it was continuously contracting. No, it was compressing. The golden light was becoming more condensed with every moment and even denser. The golden light which had been pure became dark gold after being compressed. The ground was trembling, violently trembling, and the pebbles continuously trembled and were thrown about as if they were jumping. A deep and muffled sound came from the deep inside earth as though there was a monster howling underneath. Crack, half of a mountain range suddenly crumbled. Some Xianxia with low cultivation were unable to escape in time and buried alive. The Xianxia all flew into the sky with terror on their faces. In the air, they could see more clearly. The hard ground was like mud at this time, as though there was an invisible hand that was easily molding it. Everyone's already ugly expressions became even whiter. In front of such worldly power, their power was so minuscule and insignificant. Li Shu was disheveled as he flew next to Elder Shen. "Elder, this is, something definitely is happening in the Shen Hall," Elder Shen said in a deep voice. He was also astounded inside, but he showed calmness on the outside. Do not worry, the Sun tribe had flourished for a time. It would be unusual if there wasn't any disturbance when their Shen temple opened. Hearing this, Li Shu was slightly reassured. He couldn't help but praise, "Elder is right. This presence is intimidating." Elder Shen snorted coldly, "Intimidating? The Sun tribe has died out long ago, and even our sect's great formation might also have such presence. Do not be frightened by these outdated and rotten powers. This disciple understands," Li Shu said hurriedly. It seemed that his words had caused Elder to be displeased. He hurriedly changed the topic. "Elder, do you think that someone has entered ahead of everyone?" "Impossible." Elder Shen shook his head. The Sun tribe is extremely closed off to outsiders, and thought of the world to be conquered by them. How can their Shen temple allow others to enter? Unless the other is also of the Sun tribe. But this is basically impossible. After the battle of sealed extinction, all the warriors of the Sun tribe fell, and they were attacked by the other tribes, and all died out. All of their Shen temples were destroyed. This Shen temple was able to avoid that fate because, it is very remote and few people knew of it. The other was the head priest at the time saw the situation and closed the Shen temple from the inside world and sank it into the ground. Who can live for thousands of years? Li Shu was intoxicated on the words. With Elder's few words, he depicted a vast ancient battle. Suddenly, Elder Shen stopped, his gaze focusing tightly on the pillar of light. The light pillar was compressed into 10 li, 15 times smaller than before. It wasn't like a pillar of light now, but a dark crimson and gold pillar that seemed tangible. Suddenly, the lower end of the pillar started to disappear. No, it wasn't disappearing, it was shrinking upwards. Those who had keen eyes instantly exclaimed, "It is shrinking inwards." Those that were alerted looked closely. As said, the upper end of the pillar was also shrinking towards the middle at an astounding rate. The scene was extremely strange. It was like a golden rod that had two ends that were shrinking back towards the middle and quickly became short. Fantastical. Everyone knew that this gold pillar wasn't something substantial but a pillar of light. How could a pillar of light shrink from both ends? What was going on? The following scene caused everyone to lose the ability of speech. Chapter 495, Intuition. The golden pillar that connected the earth and sky was shrinking inwards at a visible rate. The pillar of light grew increasingly shorter, and the color of the gold pillar became increasingly dark, the blinding golden light became a dark crimson gold. The entire process continued for almost 15 minutes and the pillar finally shrank into a golden ball. A dark red gold sun hung in the dark sky. All of Cloud Xie suddenly became silent. Sun Shan Temple, Li Shu looked at the sky and murmured. They were close and the heat made it seem as though they were in a cauldron. He could feel the intimidating presence of the ball of light. Waves of hot air were continuously released from the ball of light. The temperature of the air quickly rose and became burning hot. Everything within his field of view started to warp. The grass on the ground quickly withered at a visible rate, even the endless cloud sea under their feet was swept clean by the burning air and they were able to see an exposed corner of the Sun Shan Temple. A Shan Temple from tens of thousands of years ago, after being whittled away by time, it still had such terrifying presence. How great would it have been at its peak? At this moment, Li Shu's thoughts wandered. Elder Shen did not speak and a shocked expression was also on his face. His cultivation was yuanying and he could squeeze into the ranks of the higher classes in the entire four-realm heaven. His knowledge was much greater than Li Shu, and with that, he was able to understand what the scene in front of them represented better than Li Shu. Yearning and heat flashed across his eyes. Beside the two people, Lu Zhen and the others gaped as they looked in disbelief at the enormous dark red sun in the sky. They were dumbstruck. Suddenly, Elder Shen said gravely, "You will need to prepare. The movement from the Sun Shan Temple has been so great this time, people should have guessed that it is not long before it opens. At that time, a battle will be unavoidable." Elder Shen's words pulled Li Shu and the others back to reality. They hurriedly said together, "Yes." Elder Shen looked deeply at the corner of the Sun Shan Temple that was exposed and then disappeared. Li Shu's gaze unconsciously moved back to the dark gold and red sun. Recovered, he couldn't help but frown. They only learned the time of the activation through divination but hadn't expected that the Sun Shan Tribble would make such noise before it activated. This undoubtedly increased the difficulty. No matter if it was him, or Elder Shen, they would never think that the scene in front of them had nothing to do at all with the activation of the Shan Temple. It was due to certain person getting in first. Beautiful. So beautiful. The middle-aged male looked intoxicatedly at the ball of light that seemed like a sun in the sky. The masked assassin did not speak. That pale white and unusual mask seemed to be dyed a dark crimson gold. "Ah, it is troublesome now," the middle-aged male suddenly exclaimed. "Such a great spectacle, everyone will know that the Shan Temple is going to open. It's over. I had originally planned for us to sneak in before everyone else reacts, and get the thing. There's nothing to do now." The masked assassin did not speak. The middle-aged male's attitude seemed grievous as he nattered on. The masked assassin suddenly interrupted him, "There's people. There's people. The middle-aged male stilled and suddenly reacted. A light flashed across his eyes. You are saying there's people inside the temple? Someone got in. Damn it. The middle-aged male held his head with both hands and couldn't help but curse, bastard. But he quickly thought of something and the anger on his face dissipated. He said smugly, "Ha! Impossible. The defenses of the Shen temple are so strong that it is not something a person can damage. Unless it is a descendant of the Sun tribe, no one can break through this layer of protection. Ha, I got someone to divine before. The Sun tribe has died out, not even a hair is left." The masked assassin did not argue and was silent. Seeing this, the middle-aged person showed a hesitant expression. He knew the masked assassin was not one to speak nonsense and couldn't help but inquire, "How do you know that there are people inside?" Like a puppet, the masked assassin indifferently spat out a word, "Intuition." The middle-aged male felt a cloud move over his head. The damned intuition. This person's intuition had always been very accurate. Mo slowly woke up. He found he was leaning on the stone wall and everything was as before he fell asleep. Had he just had a dream? Mo shook his head. Everything that happened in the dream was so clear. He hesitated and then started to inspect his body. The greenvine mystical water was silently curled up in his body like a tamed pet. At some unknown time, a little sun appeared in his dantian. The sun was very small, the light released threads of warmth. The warmth followed into his channels and to every part of his body. His entire body was warm and felt unspeakably comfortable. The three powers that had been tangled up and hard to pick apart in his body had completely merged together and had become a power that he was unfamiliar with. A thought imprint that contained countless information caused Mo to understand everything. Uncontrollably, 2 lines of hot tears spilled from Mo's eyes. Big brother Qing Lin. That wasn't a dream. Mo wiped away his tears, knelt on the ground and kowtowed gravely 3 times towards the rock wall. Mo was not too sorrowful, not because he was used to death in this chaotic state of the world but because in the thought imprint that big brother Qing Lin had left behind, it was filled with the emotional sentiments of being released. This kind of ending was one that big brother Qing Lin wanted, and what he chose. What Mo could do was finish Big Brother's last wish. He decided inside that no matter what, he would go and visit Big Brother's homeland. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao and Wei were silent. A moment later, Wei said, "The Greenvine tribe is also a very powerful tribe in the history records. This Qing Lin's Shen power is immeasurable. He probably was also a great warrior in the past. I hadn't expected that he would be imprisoned in the Shen temple for tens of thousands of years." Pu Yao had once been imprisoned in the Yao subduing tower for thousands of years as well and understood the hopelessness. To be able to keep his sanity after being imprisoned for tens of thousands of years in a closed-off Shen temple, even Pu Yao who usually had his nose in the sky couldn't help but feel great admiration. No matter how powerful one was, they could not stop the power of time. Those experts that were imprisoned in the Jinji and illusory realms were not killed by the Jinji or illusions, but by the power of time. Loneliness and hopelessness were the most effective emotions to form mental demons. Once the mental demons were born, one's mind would gradually be corroded by the demons and the person would become an inhuman monster. Wei suddenly smiled after reflecting. This boy's fortune is plentiful. Our contribution. Pu Yao unashamedly claimed the achievement as his own. If Mo was here, he would be jumping in fury. Reasonable. Wei expressed deep agreement but his tone turned. But it is not easy to say if this is good fortune or calamity. Oh. Pu Yao's bloody pupil narrowed and the flame around his body stilled. Shen power might have disappeared for a long time, but there would probably be people who would still recognize it. Wei continued, "Look at what he has, Greenvine mystical water and sun crystal seed are 2 ultimate treasures. If you or I encountered them, we probably could not avoid thinking of taking them. How about others? Any large sect would be moved. A bloody light flashed through Pu Yao's bloody pupil as he said faintly, "Kill them." Is it so easy to kill? You and I are like this now, we cannot directly act. Wei said with a sigh. Pu Yao smirked coldly. You underestimate this boy. Don't look at his unmotivated state, if he really wants to, humph. Wei said with a smile, you are right, the boy usually muddles through things but can stand up at the crucial time. He is also very slippery. Trying to benefit from him is not very easy. You don't need to worry for him. Pu Yao said unconcernedly. His tone then changed. Are you interested in Shen power? Wei gave a smile, of course. Go study it? Fits my intentions perfectly. The two exchanged a look. The thought imprint that big brother Qin Lin left contained many pieces of information. He had used the entire power of the Sun Shen Temple to help Sui Mo cultivate to Shen power and also unseal the thread of the seal on the Sun Crystal Seed so that Sui Mo could use its power yet it would not be able to harm Sui Mo. This could not count as absorbing the Sun Crystal Seed but it was the limit of what Qin Lin could do. Other than this, Qin Lin also passed on how to process the green vine mystical water, and how to use it. He also left behind the green vine technique of the green vine tribe to Sui Mo. Qin Lin did however say that Sui Mo was not suited to cultivating this technique and it could only function as a reference. Of all this, what was most important to Sui Mo was the detailed introduction to the Sun Shen Temple, how to enter the Sun Shen Temple, how to solve its formations, and where the talismans were. With the aid of the Sun Shen Temple's power, Sui Mo's three powers merged into one and became Shen power. Adding on the influences from the Sun Crystal Seed, his Shen power had a clear leaning, and was very suited to cultivating the methods of the Sun tribe. Qin Lin told Sui Mo he had to find the techniques of the Sun tribe and gave out several hidden places where the Sun tribe methods could be stored. After digesting all this information, Sui Mo stood up again. The Ling power, spiritual consciousness, and Mo physique in his body had completely disappeared and became a strange power. Was this Shen power? Sui Mo curiously inspected this completely unique power. Compared to Ling power, spiritual consciousness, and the Mo physique, Shen power was completely different. No matter if it was Ling power, spiritual consciousness, or the Mo physique, they had their unique circulation pathways. Ling power traveled through channels, the consciousness centered at the brow, and the Mo physique moved through sinew and flesh. Shen power was completely different. It seemed completely aimless, burrowing randomly through Sui Mo body. The feeling that Shen power gave Sui Mo was a muddle. Its use was not as clear as the three powers. It might have been that he was too unfamiliar with it that Sui Mo felt that Shen power was very difficult to control and could not be used as he pleased with the three powers. Even the weakest of his three powers, Ling power was much easier to control than Shen power. Chaotic, unclear, hard to grasp, these were what Sui Mo felt about Shen power. This caused him to feel very awkward. No one liked power that was unclear and uncontrolled. There was this phrase that was passed among Xiaoxia. The strength of a Xiaoxia was not how much power he possessed but how much power he could control. Sui Mo was a faithful follower of this view. This new situation caused him to feel unusually awkward. Chapter 496, Shen Technique. Sui Mo did not immediately enter the Sun Shen Temple. It would rare for him to rashly do something even when there was a pile of talismans and jingsha in front of him. In his view, the most unprofitable business in the world would be to lose his little life. He needed time to digest the thought imprint that big brother Qin Lin had left him and the strange Shen power in his body. With the three powers having disappeared, Shen power became the only power that he could rely on. If he entered the temple with a muddled head, he was sure that even his bones wouldn't survive. The Sun Shen Temple was not a peaceful garden. It was the exact opposite, and full of danger. Even if he had the thought imprint that Big Brother Wang Lin left him, it could not guarantee his safety. Xuemo focused his attention on the Shen power and quickly had a new discovery. There was a faint layer of essence around his body. It was like a mist that shrouded around Xuemo. Xuemo couldn't help but think of the space shield that Ling beasts had. This thing seemed slightly like the space shield. Starting from 4th grade, the Yao beasts would have a space shield around their body. This was a sign that the Yao beast had left behind the lowest grades. Had he become something similar to Yao beasts? Xuemo muttered inside. The essence that was around Xuemo was not under Xuemo's control. No matter how Xuemo tried to control them, they were unaffected. However, they were not useless. Xuemo could clearly feel every change in the surroundings. This was not the same as the perception granted through the use of consciousness. In the area that the consciousness covered, Xuemo could detect the flow of energy, such as Ling power and the Mo physique. But everything within the range of this space shield, even if it was a speck of dust, would register into Xuemo's mind. Xuemo sensitively detected the difference between the two, and he had a feeling that he could possibly control this space shield. This feeling caused him to become extremely excited. The space shield was a bonus to his new Shen power, and the surprises that Shen power gave Xuemo were even greater. Power. Absolute power. The power of Shen power far surpassed any of the 3 powers. Xuemo was still unable to use Shen power, but even so, the magnitude of strength that the Shen power had caused Xuemo to become excited. When he casually punched the round wall, there was no loud bang, no flying rocks or dirt. Xuemo's right fist seemed to become deeply embedded in the rock like a knife entering tofu. He pulled out his fist and a deep fist-sized hole was left in the rock. 1 zhang. 1 complete zhang deep. If one could cut open the rock, they would find a straight and deep hole that was the diameter of a fist that extended 1 zhang deep. Xuemo inhaled sharply and then could not disguise the joy on his face. This punch looked normal, but it had an unusual profoundness. The depth of 1 zhang was enough to show how powerful this one punch was, enough to rival flying swords. The ruler-straight deep hole that went from start to finish meant that the force of this punch was concentrated at one point and had not dissipated at all. Xuemo knew just how frightening this was. Even with the great Mo physique, he was unable to do this. He looked at his hands and then paused. White, smooth, slender, the palms seemed feminine. Were these his palms? No way. Xuemo was slightly stunned. He remembered very well that his palms in the past had seemed to be forged from metal and shone with a metallic sheen. These hands were too feminine. It wasn't just that the skin had changed, but his entire hand was a size smaller than before. Xuemo was slightly discontent. In comparison, he liked his previous hands that seemed broad, full of power and masculine. Had the Shen power also changed his appearance? Thinking about this, Xuemo shook and hurriedly took out a gold crystal broadsword from the ring. Using the mirror-smooth surface, he looked at himself. He first sighed in relief, but then his brow creased. His features had not changed greatly, but his figure was much thinner than before. In the past, his body had been balanced, but it gave people the feeling of power due to cultivating the great Mo physique. Right now, that powerful presence had disappeared, and he was slightly delicate. Yes, delicate. Xuemo's mood instantly turned bad. Gu hates little white faces the most. Actually, from the perspective of appearances, Xuemo only became more refined. This did not make him look uglier and gave him a gentlemanly presence. Of course, that was only before Xuemo spoke. He was a qualified ruffian, an exceptional gangster, but definitely not a well-behaved youth. No matter how discontent Xuemo was, he could not control the changes of his body. Did the great ones of the ancient era like this style? Zhuemo discontently asked the great ones of the Sun Shan Temple, but he decided to not waste time on this painful question. So feminine. There were countless talismans waiting in the Shan Temple for him. Zhuemo instantly threw the question of his appearance to the back of his mind, focused and started to explore his Shan power. With this search, he found another unusual occurrence: the soul-setting divine light had burrowed into the Shan power. Zhuemo was slightly shocked, but he wasn't too nervous. The soul-setting divine light had just been a thread and was pitifully small. It was the same as Shan power, and did not listen to his commands. These two were of the same streak. Once he decided to study something, Zhuemo would usually quickly enter a focus state. He used all the methods he knew of to experiment with Shan power and gradually understood some of the peculiarities. For example, he found if he absorbed Ling power, the Ling power would be rapidly swallowed by the Shan power. If he cultivated the Mo physique, it would be the same result. The Shan power would actively absorb power from his body. This was also why his present body looked slightly thin. What was most exciting was that he found he could control Ling power. Zhuemo found the explanation from the greenvine technique. Greenvine was the cultivation technique of the greenvine tribe and completely opposite to the Sun tribe. However, it also cultivated Shan power, so some basic techniques were not very different. The control of Shan power was extremely complex. Even with basic techniques, it had stringent demands of body, essence and consciousness. After studying a few basic techniques, a strange feeling grew. Body, essence, consciousness, wasn't that the techniques to control the three powers? Zhuemo suddenly realized. He didn't know what Shan power was, but Shan power was definitely the product of his three powers being merged together. So naturally, how it would be controlled would be using the control techniques of the three powers at the same time. Thinking this through, Zhuemo was very motivated. However, he quickly found the difficulty in doing this was very high. In other words, he had to channel his Mo skills, spells, and Yao arts at the same time, and the three had to reach a perfect balance melding together before he could control Shan power. It was too difficult. In just moments, Zhuemo was soaked in sweat. Without the support of the Mo physique, he had returned to his previous weak little body, and his endurance could not be said to be good. According to the demands on greenvine, Zhuemo clumsily twisted his body like a drunkard, his step stumbling strangely as he stammered. Greenvine's luminous flower, serene moon a crescent, mountains tall waters clear, harmonious and still, ordered and regular, his eyes were wide as he tried to draw out a strange shape in his mind that was similar to Yao arts. Before he could finish drawing it out, his legs softened. Zhuemo was unable to control himself and landed on his behind on the ground. Pant pant pant. Zhuemo furiously gasped, his eyes wide. After resting for a full half-hour, he finally recovered and his eyes became light again. He finally knew why the use of Shan power disappeared. Such a complex and hard-to-learn thing, it would be strange if it wasn't eliminated. He really could not imagine how those ancient great ones had managed to produce something this complex. He did not doubt that the appearance and rise of the three powers was mostly because the people could not cultivate Shan power, so they divided Shan power into three parts. Since they could not cultivate all of it, they would lower the difficulty and only cultivate one of them. Yet what made him want to cry was that the three powers in his body had all become Shan power, and the Shan power automatically consumed other powers. This meant that even if he started cultivating the three powers again, he could not produce any results. Damn it! Zhuemo's face was black. The Shan technique he had just practiced was called green flower, and was one of the basic moves in greenvine. Supposedly, children around age 10 were able to cultivate it. 10 years old. Zhuemo gritted his teeth and he flipped through the greenvine technique to search for easier content. Every type of Shen technique would contain content in 3 areas: divination dance, command, and heavenly sacrifice. Divination dance was an extremely unique language based on limb movements. Not understanding it, Mo viewed it as dancing around madly. Command meant orders, curses and acts. Heavenly sacrifice was to communicate with the world. Only when the 3 were in perfect sync could a Shen technique be cast. At long last, his efforts did not fail him. In the last subordinate record, Mo found the simplest Shen technique, light finger. Mo chose it for a very simple reason, because its divination dance only required dancing of the fingers. There was nothing else more suited for Mo because he had not forgotten his practiced finger motions. As expected, Mo, who had the foundation of finger motions, could quickly finish the entire divination dance smoothly. Of course, it really was simple, and only had 3 movements. This caused Mo's confidence to grow. The command was very simple, only 1 word. The hardest was the heavenly sacrifice. Mo took 2 whole hours to familiarize himself. Yet Mo quickly found that even if he was familiar with all 3 parts, it was not so simple for them to work together. Losing one or the other would occasionally occur, and the 3 were unable to reach a perfect meld. Mo was not demotivated. Failure was common to him. He repeatedly practiced. His sweat flowed down his forehead and his neck. His terrible endurance made him feel the exhaustion he had not felt for a long time, but he gritted his teeth and persisted. His fingers moved rapidly and then pointed at the rock nearby as he shouted, "Break!" His eyes widened and the heavenly sacrifice was finished in an instant. The Shen power in his body suddenly moved. Bam! A muffled sound. Mo stilled. Success. Had he succeeded? When his gaze moved towards the place that had just made the sound, his eyes widened and he was stunned where he stood. A rock hole with a diameter of 1 zhang was in front of him. Mo unconsciously walked towards the rock hole. The mouth was even bigger than he was tall and dazed him. The walls of the hole was smooth as though they were carved with a knife. The inside was completely dark and Mo walked in as though he was possessed. 1 zhang, 2 zhang, 3 zhang. 20 zhang, the hole was 20 zhang deep. Chapter 497, Activation of the Shen Temple. It was impossible to describe the shock Mo was feeling. The enormous rock hole that seemed to have been carved with a knife was completely smooth. It surpassed everything that Mo knew. Before this, Mo had felt that he was able to understand this power, yet he found that its profoundness was much deeper and advanced than he had imagined. At this time, Mo suddenly felt his body shake. Something inside his body seemed to explode. A familiar feeling returned to his body. Mo's eyes widened and an expression of disbelief came onto his face. The exhaustion in his body swept away. He dazedly raised his arm. The familiar Great Daimo physique had returned to his body. His mind moved. As well, his consciousness and Ling power had returned to normal. Was it? A daring idea rose in his mind. The shock on Mo's face uncontrollably turned to joy. Excited, Mo instantly started to experiment. He quickly proved what he had guessed. For some unknown reason, his Shen power could revert back to the 3 powers and the 3 powers could merge to become Shen power. What was even more joyous was that he could control this change. He could not resist and roared with laughter. The laughter echoed in the cave and even disturbed the hardship guards that were standing guard outside. However, they did not rashly charge in. Even though they did not know what was making Darren so happy, but it definitely was something good. When he had achieved Shen power before, Mo had not been this happy. Shen power was unrivaled in its power, but he was more familiar with the 3 powers, and could not help but feel disappointed at their loss. Now that he discovered that the three powers and Shen power could freely transform into each other, the last bit of hesitation disappeared. If he wanted to use Shen power, he would use Shen power; if he wanted to use the three powers, he would use the three powers. However, the three powers that had been deconstructed were slightly changed. His MO physique and consciousness had decreased with different magnitudes, especially his MO physique, which had weakened the most. The opposite had happened with his Ling power, which had increased greatly. The three powers had become equal. This change did not disappoint Mo, rather he felt overjoyed. The problem of his Ling power was one of the problems he had had a headache about. He was living in the Xiuzhe world. If he used the Mo physique and Yao arts every day, and someone with good eyes detected it, then it would be great trouble. Ling power was good, it was safe. As for spells he could use, that wasn't a problem. They had won many spells over the course of their battles. As a last resort, he could even go to Pu Yao and nag and bother him, he would eventually get one. He felt the thick Ling power inside his body. He was just a line away from Jindan, and the feeling of clarity of his mind made him greatly intoxicated. Thinking about the Shen power of just now, he felt that the three powers were more enjoyable. However, now with Shen power, he had another ultimate technique to protect himself. Who would scorn themselves for having more techniques? Even more, it was a Shen technique. Mo seemed to have been struck dizzy by Jingshi that fell from the sky. After experiencing for a while, Mo once again went back into his cultivation. He had to familiarize himself with the transformation between the three powers and Shen power. This was a killing move, an ultimate move. As he practiced, he suddenly pondered a question. When Shen power turned to the three powers that were obtained were extremely equal. Since that was the case, couldn't he cultivate Ling power through cultivating the Mo physique? Once this daring idea jumped into his mind, he became alert. If he could really do it, then it really was very profitable. The three powers were each a system unto themselves and were strongly separated. There were many reasons that Mo's Ling power was a shortcoming. Pu Yao's and Wei's influences caused Mo to cultivate Yao arts and the Mo physique, but the most important cause was that his talent at cultivating Ling power was far less than his talent in the Mo physique and Yao arts. Wei Sheng was the opposite and was a genius at cultivating Ling power. The three powers could merge and form Shen power, the Shen power could transform and divide equally into the three powers. Didn't that mean that Mo did not have any cultivation shortcomings? Mo tried it and as expected, his idea was realized. However, he quickly calmed down. This matter had advantages and disadvantages. Even though he did not have any cultivation shortcomings, but if he wanted to improve the same amount as other people, the gains he needed to advance in cultivating was 3 times that of other people. This wasn't an insignificant cultivation amount. Mo was full of motivation. He was frightened by the triple amount of cultivation. He dreamed about all 3 of his powers progressing together, stepping on all of his enemies. Mo felt his body heat up and wanted to start cultivating immediately. However, he didn't get swept up in the moment and kept some of his intelligence. Cultivation was a long-term effort and there was an enormous treasure hoard waiting for him. For Mo, being satisfied was a very simple yet difficult task. He decided to explore the Sun Shen Temple. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, he entered the state of cultivation and only stood up again when he had recovered to his best state. Facing the rock wall, the 3 powers in his body merged into Shen power. His head rang, as though there was a cord plucked right next to his ear. That strange, space shield returned to his body. The rock wall that had been blank suddenly became filled with strange characters that were like earthworms. Mo didn't recognize any of them. But that was all right. He reached out an arm and his palm placed on the rock wall. The golden earthworm characters on the rock wall suddenly lit up. The black and dense rock wall became clear, and Mo unhesitatingly stepped in. As Mo passed through the transparent rock wall, the rock wall resumed its previous appearance. Passing through the rock wall, Mo was frightened by the scene in front of him. He was situated in a stone corridor. The corridor was very large and about 6 to 7 zhang wide. The height was even more astonishing, about 20 zhang tall. Exquisite carvings could be seen on the stone walls on both sides. Even after tens of thousands of years, there were still many carvings that were undamaged. Among the carvings, the most commonly seen were depictions of the sun. These sun carvings released warm light and illuminated the corridor as though it was under direct sunlight. The enormous stone slabs showed weathering in many places due to the passage of time. But what attracted Mo's attention was that there were armored soldiers standing along the two sides of the corridor. These armored soldiers wore heavy armor as they stood with their battle axes. Not far away were many pieces of damaged armor and there were some bones next to the armor. These soldiers must have been the guards for the Sun Shan Temple. The warriors that were standing guard would have been in this position before they were dead. Mo did not worry about these people. After tens of thousands years, they were completely dead. As expected, when Mo passed by these armored soldiers, they were motionless. He looked painfully at the damaged armor that was scattered on the floor. He didn't know what the armor was made from. A portion of them had weathered after thousands of years but they were mostly preserved. These were not ordinary objects. However, Mo remembered what Big Brother Wang Lin told him and did not touch the armored warriors. The corridor was silent and without a sound. Even though Mo was daring, he was unconfident and regretted that he had not brought people with him. A ruckus suddenly came from behind him. Mo jumped in fright and hurriedly turned around. He found that a rock slab from the wall had fallen down, smashed to the ground and caused a cloud of dust to rise. After this false alarm, Mo hurriedly gathered his mind and forced himself to depart for the inner parts of the Shan Temple. His present position was in the Greenwood Secret Realm, but Wang Lin had passed away so there was no one controlling the Greenwood Secret Realm. It had stopped its activity but that did not mean that this was safe for him. Every tile, every carving in this place could be a trap. Mo kept the map that Wang Lin gave him and readied his mind. It was packed with all kinds of warnings and caused Mo's scalp to tingle. There were many large and small secret realms in the Shan Temple. If he accidentally became trapped in one of them, he could be lost for his entire lifetime and then die as the Shan Temple was destroyed. Mo became as alert as he could. The corridors were like a maze. If he didn't have a map, Mo would not have it so easily. Mo stopped moving. In front of him was a lake. The endless water was as smooth as glass and it was possible to faintly discern mountain peaks in the distance. There were bubbles of various sizes floating on top of the lake among the ethereal mist. These bubbles of various colors changed in the sunlight and were beautiful. Mo inhaled sharply, his face serious. This was the Bloody Water Secret Realm. It was a very dangerous secret realm. The guardian of the Bloody Water Secret Realm was a female called Tuesday. She had once been a princess of the Benthic Water tribe. However, that had been far distant in the past and she had lost her sanity, only to become a monster that only knew to kill. These seemingly beautiful air bubbles were all dangerous. Each bubble was a water secret realm. If one ended up in it, they would be unable to escape. Tuesday. Wang Lin's imprint also told Mo honestly that even he was not a match for Tuesday. Even though everyone's Shan power was gradually disappearing, but Tu was still very powerful. There was definitely no chance if he fought her. Reviewing and remembering every warning that Big Brother Wang Lin gave him, he made sure he did not miss anything before stepping forward. Stepping on the lake surface, every step caused ripples to spread outwards. A light wind suddenly formed on the lake surface. The colored bubbles flowed with the wind and floated towards Mo. Seeing the air bubbles increase and come closer, Mo's body became even more nervous. At this moment, a warm flow suddenly came from his body. The sun crystal seed suddenly flew out of his body, floated above his head, and gave off a warm golden light like a sun. This layer of sunlight was like a golden shield that covered Xuemo. The 5 colored bubbles seemed extremely afraid of the golden light and instantly ran far away. Xuemo finally released a breath. Wang Lin told him that the sun crystal seed in his body was the crux to being able to enter the Shen temple. With the protection of the sun crystal seed, Xuemo safely passed through the bloody water secret realm. He did not encounter Tuesday too, probably had felt the presence of the sun crystal seed and avoided him. They had lost their minds, but the Jinji inside their bodies were still present, so they innately feared the presence of the sun. The sun crystal seed was a true sun, even though it had not fully formed, it still had the purest sun presence. Wang Lin had also used the entire power of the Shen temple to open a bit of the sun crystal seed seal. Chapter 498, Golden Crow Sacrifice. The red eyes of the golden crows were like 2 burning balls of fire. Their inky black wings had crisscrossing golden scripts that appeared blinding and grand. They stood high up on the rock pillars and looked down at the people, their fire-red eyes filled with the indifference and disdain like that of deities. They seemed to have just woken up from a deep sleep as they lazily flapped their wings as though no one was around. The spectators had started to rumble. Golden crows, wondrous beasts from the ancient times, were alive right in front of them. In the ancient era, the golden crow was a beast that represented the sun. The flames it produced were as fiery as the sun and could dissolve the hardest metals. They were so strong that people feared them. But like the other famed beasts of the ancient era, they disappeared in the long river of time and disappeared from people's views. At this time, there were 10 golden crows appearing in front of them. The blow and shock that they gave the spectators was peerless. Even the Yuanying, Elder Shen, couldn't help but gape with his eyes tightly locked onto the 10 golden crows. Golden crow, there really are golden crows. Elder Shen murmured. Li Shu was so shocked that he was unable to speak. No matter how much importance the sect placed on him, he was just a 3rd-generation disciple. When had he ever seen such a spectacle? That's not right. Elder Shen's eyes suddenly narrowed and he recovered his calmness. These are not the true bodies of the golden crows. Hearing this, Li Shu instantly froze. Not the true bodies? Then what is it? It should be the souls of the golden crows. Elder Shen sighed emotionally. To be able to seal the souls of golden crows to guard the Shen temple, such skill is divine. Li Shu realized it. He carefully inspected the 10 golden crows. As he expected, he found that the borders of their bodies were slightly blurry, but from this distance it was hard to detect if one did not look closely. But do not underestimate the souls of golden crows. Their power is not any less than 7th-grade Ling beasts. There is also 10 of them. If based on brute force, we are not enough even if we have 10 lives, Elder Shen gazed at the golden crows and said to himself. Elder, why are the beast soul guardians of the temple suddenly coming out? Li Shu asked, puzzled. Has someone moved? Provoked them? But they haven't attacked. As he spoke, Li Shu felt something was increasingly wrong and his expression changed dramatically. Elder Shen's face also changed. Lu Zhen was confused and did not understand. But looking at the faces of the 2 Darren, he also knew that something had gone wrong. At this time, the golden crows that had been perched on the golden pillars suddenly looked at the red sun in the sky. 10 red lines of fire sprouted from the open mouths of the 10 golden crows and wrapped around the red sun. The little sun exploded in brightness and burned fiercely. The air in the surroundings increased in temperature again. At the same time, the curtains of light between the 10 stone pillars of the Sun Shen temple became bright and the curtains of light covered the entire Sun Shen temple. I hadn't thought that we would trip up in such an easy place, someone else has managed to trick us. Elder Shen's face was black as he gritted out, I want to see who has the guts to dare play tricks under this old man's eyes. Li Shu's expression was also terrible. The fact that the temple guardian souls had appeared but did not attack anyone meant that it wasn't caused by someone intruding on the defenses of the Shen temple. Then there was only one possibility left, someone was controlling the defenses of the Shen temple and activated the temple guardian souls. Didn't the Sun tribe die out? Li Shu refocused and asked. Sect leader's divination would not be incorrect. Both he and Elder Shen believed deeply in this. The change in this matter definitely had occurred in these last 2 days. What Li Shu voiced was what he was most puzzled by. The Sun tribe had died out long ago, the sect had been sure of this a long time ago. This was the result of having repeated divinations done. This was also why the sect had targeted the Sun Shen temple. The clanspeople of the Sun Shen tribe had died out and meant that the possibility of having something unexpected happen was not high. Normal people would not be accepted by temples like this. Yet what they had not expected was that an accident had occurred at the very place they felt the safest. Elder Shen was experienced and knowledgeable. He calmed down and said coldly, don't pay attention to that. We must enter the Shen temple immediately before the other completely grasps the Shen temple. This is the only chance. These beast spirits will not attack us, they are making a sacrificial ceremony. Li Shu froze. Making a sacrifice was a very unfamiliar term for any Xianxia of the present. His eyes quickly did not show any more shock. Someone was sacrificing using 10 golden crow souls. He turned around his thinking, using 10 golden crow souls as a sacrifice, what did the other want to do? Elder Shen's expression was dark and showed slight urgency. Before the 2 people could react, his sleeve twirled around them and the 3 people disappeared. At the same time, several lights flashed across the sky at the same time, all flying towards the stone pillar. Evidently, Elder Shen was not the only one to think of this. The lights in the air flew at the curtain of light. Whoosh! Several Xianxia did not have the time to wail before they exploded into balls of fire. Several dots of light appeared on the light curtain and then disappeared in the blink of the eye. Only when one flew near the curtain of light could they truly feel how high the temperature was. Those that were slightly lacking in cultivation would be swallowed by flames if they just came into contact with the curtain of light. Some others saw the situation and started attacking the stone pillars in hopes that they could avoid the curtain of light. Yet what they had not expected was that the stone pillars were extremely hard and were undamaged no matter how they attacked. But there were also people that charged into the curtain of light. Elder Shen took the 2 people along and turned to a stream of fire that easily passed through the curtain of light. There was a Xianxia who wrapped his entire body in a layer of water and easily passed through the light. Some Xianxia had swords protecting their body as they passed. All kinds of moves were used, but there was one common quality. All those that could pass through the curtain of light were experts. Some of them were of mysterious origins, but the great majority were experts that had been famous for a long time in Cultivation. There were people constantly turning to dust. The heated hearts of the spectators cooled greatly. The greed at one moment could daze their minds, but no one would do something such as knowingly rush to their death. Those that charged at the curtain of light were all people that had absolute confidence in themselves. Among the crowd, exclamations occasionally occurred. It's Chao Bei, he also came. Look, look. That is Hai Wuya. Expert after expert appearing caused the mood to reach a small climax. Since they knew they could not enter the Shen temple, many people gave up and decided to peacefully watch. This place became the center of Cultivation. More than half of the experts had come to attend this magnificent spectacle. The golden crows continued to shoot flames at the little sun. The fire of the little sun grew, and the heated waves were hard to tolerate. The spectators continuously retreated. Such presence caused everyone to pale. Some of the people that felt they had the abilities to enter couldn't help but hesitate. The presence of the Sun Shan temple was great, just like the sun, blinding and unable to be looked at. It probably was not so easy to enter. Some that were more cautious even flew backwards far from the Shan temple ruins. If they lost their lives because of watching this, it was not worth it. Zhuo Mo was also alarmed by the change in front of him. Truthfully, no matter if it was Qing Lin or the strange corpse, they were not too clear about the value of the Sun Crystal Seed to the Sun Tribe. The Sun Crystal Seed were forged by every totem warrior of the Sun Tribe and was the core inherited item of the Sun Tribe. Not just this 7-star Shan temple, Zhuo Mo who possessed the Sun Crystal Seed could easily receive the recognition of even higher-ranked Sun Shan temple. How could such an ignorant Zhuo Mo truly understand the profoundness in this? He dazedly looked with a puzzled face at the shocking change of the sacrificial altar. At this moment, something suddenly happened. A golden pillar that seemed tangible came from the sky and covered Zhuo Mo. Zhuo Mo felt as though he was soaking in a hot spring. His entire body was warm and comfortable. Where did this golden light come from? Zhuo Mo didn't know. He did not have time to think. At this time, his mind was in a very special state. The Sun Crystal Seed in his body was unusually active. Threads of golden light and red energy swam from all directions towards the Sun Crystal Seed. They smelled something familiar. If Zhuo Mo was clear-minded, he would find to his shock that this ray of light that was so solid it seemed tangible came from that little sun at the top of his head. The Sun Crystal Seed was like a key that opened this sealed storehouse. Elder Shan raised his head to look at the sky. His expression became even worse and his mood darker. The little sun above his head had reached a peak in brightness, and was not lacking compared to the true sun in the sky. The figures of the 10 golden crows were visibly fading. Elder Shan knew what was going on. Someone was manipulating the power of the Sun Shan temple. No, more accurately, someone was absorbing the power of the Sun Shan temple. If he was not seeing it with his own eyes, he definitely would not believe it. Only those who were descendants of the Sun Tribe could absorb the power of the Sun Shan temples. No matter how certain he had been before that there were no survivors of the Sun Tribe, reality was in front of him. He had to accept that the sect leader had been wrong in his divination. Once this conclusion came out, he could not stop the murderousness he felt. The sect leader placed great importance on this ruin. He had found a clue by accident and after effort on multiple fronts, they had gradually locked onto the position of the ruins. During this time, the sect leader and the other major personages of the sect had expended great effort to divine to finally get this result. This person who was able to escape so many divinations either had a great treasure or his power was astounding. If he waited for the other to finish absorbing the power of the Sun Shan temple, it would be too late. Elder Shan took a deep breath. His gaze was serious. No matter what, he had to get the Sun Shan temple. "Stay carefully behind me," Elder Shan said in a deep voice. Without another word, he strode forward. Li Shu's heart shook and tightly followed behind Elder Shan. Lu Zhen also did not dare to speak and hurriedly followed. In front of them were endless sand dunes. Chapter 499, Those Daring Die from Bursting. This is the overflowing earth secret realm, be careful of what is under your feet. Elder Shan's tone was serious as he looked into the distance. It was vast there with endless dunes that stretched without end. Nothing grew on the endless dunes and it was possible to see a pile of bones occasionally. The entire landscape was unspeakably desolate and lifeless. The air was abnormally hot that even Jindan like Li Shu and Lu Zhen felt their mouths dry. This caused the two to become alarmed. At their cultivation level, they were not affected by water nor fire. How could their mouths feel dry? The overflowing earth secret realm is an earth element secret realm, Elder Shan said slowly. Rather than say it is an earth element secret realm, it is more accurate to say it is an earth element cage. The guardian of the realm must be someone skilled in earth element shen power. However, a thread of a smile came onto his tightly tensed face. Fortunately, sect leader had foresight. As he finished, he took out a little tender and green tree sprout. The little tree sprout was just a few cun tall, slender and soft. Each leaf was just the size of a fingernail. When Elder Shen took out this tree sprout, a cool and clear essence swept Li Shu and Lu Zhen and took away the frantic heat. Li Shu asked in shock, "Shu, what is this? How is this so wondrous?" "A jade hook tree," Elder Shen replied without turning his head. He then bent down and put the jade hook tree sprout in his hand into the sand dune. As the tree sprout touched the surface of the sand, its roots rapidly burrowed into the sand down. The green jade on the dry sand dune was abnormally eye-catching. "Jade hook tree," Li Su murmured. Inside, he was extremely shocked. The jade hook tree was one of the greatest treasures of the sect, and was usually protected in a restricted area of the sect. He hadn't thought that the sect leader had even let Elder Shen take the jade hook tree for dealing with the ruins. Jade hook tree, emerald green, a upper 6th grade ling tree, could produce jade hook beads, and was one of the best wood element beads in the world. It could be used to forge all kinds of wood element talismans. The jade hook tree itself was a very rare and hard to obtain forging material. The most important attribute of the jade hook tree was that it could absorb earth element power to strengthen itself. As the jade hook tree entered the sand dune, it started to grow furiously. The green spread at an astounding rate towards every corner of the overflowing Earth's secret realm. The heat in the air instantly decreased greatly. At this time, the sand dune under their feet had started to tremble violently. Countless sand dunes collapsed and the rumble sounded in the earth. In a blink, the patches of green were swallowing the collapsing sand dunes. Li Shu and Lu Zhen were alarmed. They were almost unable to maintain their upright posture. The sand dunes under their feet seemed to have woken up from its slumber. Elder Shen snorted coldly, his expression unchanging. "This jade hook tree has grown in our sect for 900 years. Generations of our sect poured our hearts into caring for this. It can completely transform with just a bit more effort. This encounter is perfect for it." Lu Zhen's face was confused. He did not understand. Li Shu understood and he became alert. If the jade hook tree was cared for correctly and nurtured constantly with earth element power, it had a chance to become a 7th grade celestial green jade hook tree. Above 7th grade, it was the divine ranks. The difference between 6th and 7th grade was the difference between earth and sky. 6th grade was very rare on the market, but it could still be brought. It was impossible to buy 7th grade materials on the market. When a 7th grade material came onto the market, it would disappear without a trace in the shortest time. Materials 7th grade and above would usually be labeled divine grade. Other than its rarity, it had completely different qualities from 6th grade talismans. Each material 7th grade and above was a natural talisman. Talismans forged from 7th grade materials were also called divine talismans, ultimate treasures every Xianxia dreamed of. If the jade hook tree could rise another grade and become the celestial green jade hook tree, then the sect would have another divine talisman. Not just Li Shu, even Elder Shen couldn't help but show desire unconsciously when he said this. Talismans were easy to obtain, divine talismans were hard to find. Even if he had stepped into the stage of yuanning a long time ago, it was still the same. As expected, no matter how loud the sand dunes howled, the green of the jade hook tree was hardy and tensile. It burst out of the sand and quickly spread into the surroundings. The weak trunk of the tree continuously trembled in the sand and wind, but never broke. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sand seemed to flow and gather at a place that was rapidly shifting. A sand puppet slowly rose from the sand dunes. The sand flowed towards the sand puppet from all directions and wrapped around the sand puppet as though they were snakes. They quickly flowed along the body of the sand puppet. The body of the sand puppet quickly expanded and in a blink, its body's size surpassed all the sand dunes, yet it was still growing. All of the sand in the secret realm was absorbed by it. The jade hook tree that lost the support of the sand quickly withered. The endless green quickly disappeared like a retreating tide. There was only one jade hook tree left by Elder Shen's foot. Looking at the jade hook tree, it was greener than before. Elder Shen felt pity. Just a bit more, and this jade hook tree would have finished its transformation. If he had a celestial green jade hook tree, then leaving this secret realm was an easy task. However, Elder Shen was not worried. The overflowing earth secret realm was the same as the divination results of the sect leaders and others. This caused him to be full of hope towards defeating the overflowing earth secret realm. He had come prepared. Xuemo was so comfortable he wanted to groan. The warmth that came from his bones flowed slowly through his entire body. He did not feel his power increasing, but felt unspeakably comfortable. Right, it was unspeakably comfortable. The warmth slowly disappeared. He woke up from his intoxication and opened his eyes. If someone was looking, he found fine to his shock that Xuemo's gaze in the instant he opened his eyes looked very similar to the golden birds on top of the 10 pillars. Cold and empty, looking down at everything. At the very center of his eyes, a dot of gold glinted and disappeared. The air around him seemed to condense. Even the erupting flame had froze in place. The pause was just maintained for the blink of an eye and everything returned to normal. Xuemo was still immersed in that unspeakably comfortable feeling and didn't detect anything. He shook his head and regained his clarity of mind. This wasn't a warm bed and room suitable for sleeping. The light of the sacrificial altar dimmed. While the sun in the sky was still burning, Xuemo seemed to detect a feeling of exhaustion. Was his feeling wrong? He shook his head, turned his face, and looked at the red flame. A feeling hard to verbalize formed inside. Almost unconsciously, he walked towards the flame at the center of the sacrificial altar. Xuemo didn't feel any heat from the burning flames but rather a closeness. As though he was possessed, Xuemo put his hand into the flame. Boom! The scenery around him changed. He was situated in a sea of fire with a sun hanging high above his head. Beside him, flames of fire pulsed. These flames seemed to be reflecting something. Xuemo was shocked but not panicked. When his attention turned to the flame, many scenes uncontrollably floated into his mind. Falling stone bricks, spiderwebs everywhere, and it was possible to see some people looking around occasionally. This was. He looked at another few wisps of flame. Several different scenes flowed across his mind. Xuemo's strange expression grew. Xuemo hurriedly recalled the warnings that Big Brother Qing Lin had given him, and his strange expression grew even heavier. The Shen Temple had recognized him as the master. This was too fantastical. Xuemo's mind was dazed. He was completely stunned by this large pie that dropped from the sky. He was able to encounter such a fortuitous occurrence. There's really nothing that could be done to people with good moral standing. Xuemo roared with laughter and rejoiced. If this was a descendant of the Sun tribe, they would be extremely excited and their thoughts would be how to recover the glory of the once strongest tribe. But the first thought of Xuemo that was recognized by the Shen Temple was treasure. Treasures of the Shen Temple. All of them belonged to GE. Once this idea came out, it could not be suppressed. At the start, Xuemo only wanted to mix in with the crowd and get 1 or 2 items before running off. Yet now that he was recognized by the Shen Temple, his appetite had changed. How could little Mo tolerate other people taking meat from his bowl? The situation at all parts of the Shen Temple appeared before his mind. Recognized by the Shin Temple, Zhuemo received the highest level of control of the Shin Temple. All kinds of Shin techniques to control the Shin Temple was imprinted in his mind. After browsing for a bit, Zhuemo, who was versed in formations, gained a general understanding. Zhuemo could see the beginning shapes of formations from the Shin Temple techniques, but compared to the present formations, those shapes looked primitive and were almost entirely reliant on numerous sacrificial ceremonies, medical parasites, and beast souls. It was cryptic and hard to understand. Zhuemo didn't plan on studying these things at this time. Their reasoning was cryptic, but as long as he had the Shin technique, he could eventually activate them. Zhuemo carefully counted the people in the Shin Temple. There were 34 in total, and they had been transported into different corners of the Shin Temple. At this time, all of them were carefully exploring their surroundings. Among these people, Zhuemo saw the masked assassin that almost killed him and several people from Su Ling sect. Each person's strength was above average, especially the 3 Yuanying that were even more powerful than the rest. Zhuemo's heart beat rapidly when he saw this, and the pride inside was swept away. He was walking on a tightrope. If he was careless and got caught by these people, this group would not hesitate to tear him to pieces. No. He could not let them know that he had sneaked into the Shin Temple. Otherwise, there would be endless calamities. But Zhuemo would not leave the Shin Temple at this time even for his life. He entered the Shin Temple before the other people, had the aid of Big Brother Wang Lin, and also was recognized by the Shin Temple. He had a higher starting point than other people. If he missed such a rare chance, he definitely would not get another one. No matter what, he had to try. Zhuemo emboldened his heart, do it. He suddenly snickered darkly and looked maliciously at the people in the flames. Stealing from GE. Come on, have a good taste of the warm welcome from the ancient era. Following the Shin techniques in his mind, he clumsily and crudely channeled Shin power, his body twisting like a snake as he produced muffled sounds. The Sun Shin Temple abruptly trembled fiercely. The Shin scripts in the corners of the temple rippled like a wave and started to light up. The carvings all over the Shin Temple receded as though something was going to come out. There seemed to be a string connecting sets of bones and armor scattered on the temple grounds. They slowly struggled to stand up. The golden birds on the pillars, whose shapes were now indistinct, called out in unison, flapped their wings and burrowed into the little sun. The Shin Temple instantly changed. Chapter 500, Rather than miss, kill wrongly. The little sun's radiance reached a peak, the blinding light chasing away the dark of night. It seemed like daytime in a radius of 500 li around the temple. Just as people were deeply shocked by this scene, the little sun suddenly exploded without warning. Countless streaks of fire, each drew out long tails as they pounded down like a storm of rain. The entire Sun Shin Temple became covered in this shower of fire. The crowd couldn't help but exclaim in shock. The streams of fire were astoundingly powerful. Even looking from a distance, it was possible to feel their destructive and terrifying presence. If they were hit by these flames, not even ashes would be left. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions drummed rapidly as the ground rocked violently. The Shilja who were on the ground all escaped into the sky, and at this moment a shock wave hit them. They felt their bodies tighten as though someone pushed them hard. They were unable to stabilize their body. Their expression changed as they tried to control their figures, but like leaves in the wind, they were carried dozens of zhang away. Shocked, everyone looked at the Shin Temple and inhaled sharply. The Shin Temple that had been so bright before was now completely swallowed in the dust. Explosions rang out from within and the dust would not settle. What happened? The people looked at each other cluelessly. Zhuemo released a long breath. His body felt soft and sore. He had just manipulated the power of the Shin Temple and the task was enough to consume all the Shin power in his body. However, when he saw everyone panicking and moving fruitlessly in the flames, he instantly felt good. Especially that masked assassin who was in the aged gold secret realm. He was being chased by a golden figure and was left extremely disheveled. Suemo felt good. Masked boy, enjoy this. Suemo snickered and sprinted off. After the energy of the temple was used over tens of thousands of years and unable to replenish itself, the power of the Shen temple was almost depleted. Many areas had become ineffective due to being abandoned for too long. Suemo had activated the last vestiges of power in the Shen temple, but he did not dare guarantee that he could trap those people. Especially the three Yuanying. When they attacked, the power was enough to make Suemo's scalp prickle. The most powerful of the three Yuanying was the old man in the overflowing earth secret realm. He had almost torn apart the entire overflowing earth secret realm. The person that guarded the overflowing earth secret realm was called Zhu Gui, and was enormously powerful, but this old man was completely subduing him. This old man seemed to be very clear to the defensive setup inside the secret realm, and his attacks were extremely specific. This gave Suemo a strong feeling of danger. He must find the treasures sealed in the Shen temple before he got caught by these people and then secretly escape. Otherwise, it would be a problem of escape, not just getting the treasures. However, he had his advantages. After being recognized by the Shen temple, everything inside the Shen temple was imprinted in his mind. He knew exactly where the treasures were hidden. He did not have any hesitance as he sprinted at full power. Ling Dan were pushed into his mouth to replenish his Ling power as though they did not cost Jingxia. He was hungry like a desert parched after the dry season. When the medicinal power of the Ling Dan entered his throat, they turned to threads of Ling power, and permeated every part of his body. The Ling power quickly turned to the Mo physique and spiritual consciousness in his body. The power inside his body was quickly recovering. His sprinting speed increased. A short while later, Suemo, who recovered his Mo physique, summoned the light void wings. His speed suddenly increased and he was like a golden bolt of lightning. The inside of the Shen temple was larger than it looked from the outside. Suemo ran for a whole hour before he reached his destination. In front of him was a door 9 zhang tall. The door was forged from copper and was astonishingly thick. At the middle of the door was a bright sun, and around the sun, 10 golden birds flew with wings stretched. Excitement showed on Suemo's face. Elder Shen was extremely rushed. When the sun in the sky had exploded, his heart had jumped. The worst-case scenario had occurred. Descendants of the Sun tribe. There really were descendants of the Sun tribe still alive in the world. If it had just been a speculation before, then what was happening now proved it. If one wasn't a descendant of the Sun tribe, they definitely could not control the Sun Shen temple. Also, the other was highly likely to possess the direct bloodline of the Sun tribe. If this news passed out, it would create a great ruckus. The descendants of ancient tribes were always targets those from the large sects were extremely wary of. If they were found, they would immediately be eliminated. On this point, Kunlun and the other sects of Four-Realm Heaven had come to a consensus. The bloodlines of the ancients had long disappeared due to this persecution over thousands of years. The Sun tribe, formerly the strongest tribe, was one of those pursued the most. How could a fish have slipped the net? Seeing the sand puppet reform once again, Elder Shen's expression was dark. This was the 6th time he had dispersed its body. The guardian of the overflowing earth secret realm, Zhu Gui, came from the Sand Earth tribe, one of the 9 earth tribes. Even though the sect leader and the others had given him a solution to deal with him, but it was not an easy matter to completely take the other apart quickly. Maybe in the ancient era Zhu Gui had not been a strong individual, but at present, he could definitely enter the top level. Also, this was the overflowing secret realm and Zhu Gui's power could be used to its fullest. The sect leader told him if he encountered Zhu Gui, he was to scatter the other's body 13 times and a chance to strike a fatal blow would appear. But 13 times. Was there enough time? The darkness grew over Elder Shen's mind. The masked assassin was extremely disheveled. The person in front of him was hard to damage with flying swords. He had tried very hard and managed to leave behind a wound on the other's body, but in the blink of an eye, the other had healed. "Careful, this guy is from the Silver Ground tribe," the middle-aged person shouted from behind him with a face full of urgency. The two figures in the air were like two streaks of lightning. "Damn it, so unfortunate," the middle-aged male couldn't stop himself from swearing. Someone from the Sun tribe managed to slip past. "Scum. They are scum. They've cleansed for several thousand years, and didn't manage to do it completely. What a stupid sect, they are all holes." As he swore, he felt extremely panicked. How could he have expected there would truly be Sun tribe descendants? At the beginning, that rambling guy had patted his chest to promise that there definitely was not any Sun tribe descendants, so he had run over in hopes of profiting. Based on the guy's history of never failing, he had believed it, and hired the masked assassin to come over. But now there was a Sun tribe descendant and they were trapped in the aged gold secret realm. What was unluckiness? This was. The masked assassin's power was great, but it depended on the situation. This kind of face-to-face fighting was the type of fighting that the masked assassin was weakest in. The secret realm was also the other's home territory, and concealment was completely ineffective in the secret realm. How unlucky were they to have landed in such a predicament? The middle-aged male wanted to cry. Zhuo Mo's hand pressed against the copper door. The sun crystal seed suddenly heated up. A warm flow rushed out of the sun crystal seed, and entered the copper door from Zhuo Mo's arm. The sun script on the copper door suddenly lit up. The copper doors that had been closed for tens of thousands of years slowly opened. The world behind it slowly revealed itself. Zhuo Mo took a deep breath and walked in. The space behind the door was not large. This was the priest's hall, the place that the priest usually resided. In the ancient era, due to the requirement for sacrificial ceremonies, the position of a priest was extremely glorious. Their status was just a step lower than the totem warriors. They also were in charge of the daily life of the tribe, so they were extremely powerful. In every Shin temple, the priest hall was the most important area. Zhuo Mo did not linger and walked straight through. There were some primitive and ancient artifacts along the way, but Zhuo Mo did not stop. These items looked valuable, but if he blew lightly, they would turn to dust and disappear. In tens of thousands of years, normal objects could not remain. Even though the priest was of high status, the decorations of the priest hall did not feel sumptuous and only had normal objects. Passing through the place the priest normally lived, Zhuo Mo came to the deepest part of the priest hall, the sacrifice room. The sacrifice room was not large and the decorations were unusually simple, with a copper table placed in the middle. When Zhuo Mo came in, he was attracted by an item on the table. It was a golden tree leaf. This tree leaf was the only item in the room that did not have any dust on it. It released a faint golden light that dimmed and brightened in turn like a baby's delicate breathing. Zhuo Mo saw with a glance that it was not ordinary. He was overjoyed and hurriedly picked it up. The gold light disappeared the moment the tree leaf entered his hand. The entire tree leaf was palm-sized and seemed to be made from gold. However, the patterns on it were lifelike and it did not show any marks of craftsmanship. Zhuo Mo had an intuitive feeling that this golden leaf was not man-made but a natural object. Even an idiot would know that this golden leaf was not ordinary. Time was tight, so Zhuo Mo did not examine it closely and hurriedly put it into his ring. He raised his head and glanced at the copper golden crow statues on the table that were covered in dust. Zhuo Mo hesitated and then swept them into the ring. With the attitude that he would not miss any treasure, even if he made some mistakes and took something worthless, Zhuo Mo didn't even leave the copper table and put it into the ring. There were 2 copper shelves beside the copper desk that was filled with decaying objects. They should have been filled in the past. Xuemo did not care for the uncleanliness and started to rummage through the debris. He felt that anything which had not decayed was something good. Tens of thousands of years was like a butcher's knife. Those that were not good pigs with thick skin could not survive. He actually did have some success. A turtle shell with scorch marks, 7 sharp beast teeth, and a short wooden rod that was extremely marked up. Xuemo was motivated and placed the 2 copper shelves into the ring as well. It was a pity that the door was too large and could not be taken of its hinges. Xuemo smacked his lips with regret. After scanning the surroundings to make sure he did not miss anything, Xuemo finally left the sacrifice room. He searched in his mind and the next target entered Xuemo's vision. His blood instantly started to boil. Chapter 501, Plow up the earth. Avoiding the few dangerous places, Xuemo finally found the target he was searching for. The moment he saw it, he felt as though his heart stopped beating. He stopped breathing and unconsciously slowed his steps as though he was afraid of scaring it away. His eyes showed all kinds of shock and disbelief. This was a tree. It was the most beautiful and grandest tree Xuemo had ever seen. It was not very tall, only about the same height as Xuemo. The body of 3 was bright red, even brighter than the most beautiful coral. The body of the tree was smooth as though the most accomplished craftsman had carefully sanded it down. There weren't any protrusions on the entire tree trunk. Every part of the tree had extremely beautiful curves that were perfect and would cause people to sigh at the wonder of nature. Xuemo's gaze was attracted by the balls of fire on the tree. Heavens, what was that? Xuemo gaped. He lost all abilities of speech. Once proud of his vast experience, he found that his imagination was so poor. That wasn't balls of flame, those were clearly miniature little suns. Each was the size of a fist, round, each one had a layer of orange-red flames shrouding it, they were all small suns. There were 10 small suns hanging like this from the tree. Xuemo froze for a moment and unconsciously walked towards the red tree. A warm presence blew across him. This presence was extremely unique. It seemed to be able to easily permeate the body. Xuemo felt that even his bones were warm. Sun Shan Tree. Was this the Sun Shan Tree? Xuemo suddenly recalled how Big Brother Wang Lin had especially mentioned this in the thought imprint he had left behind. Looking at the red tree, he felt this name was extremely appropriate. This was definitely the Sun Shan Tree that Big Brother Wang Lin had mentioned. Xuemo believed without a doubt. The Sun Shan Tree was the symbol of the Sun tribe. Whenever they came to a new place, they would plant this tree. The Sun Shan Tree was able to produce sun fruits. These sun fruits were usually given to the warriors in the tribe with potential to nurture their Shan power. The sun fruits would mature after 10 years. If they were not picked at maturity, they would form sun seeds after 40 years and naturally fall off the tree. Xuemo hurriedly bent his head. As expected, there was a thick layer of dark red and hard seeds on the ground. He picked one up and examined it. The body of the seed was dark red and filled with extremely fine golden scripts. It felt like heavy jade and gave off a clear warmth in his hand. Without a word, Xuemo started to furiously sweep sun seeds into the ring as though he was insane. Compared to the sun fruit, sun seeds were much better. The Sun Shan power inside was even purer and thicker after being condensed for 40 years, and its quality a whole level above sun fruit. Other than consuming it to increase Shan power, it was also one of the favored weapons of the Sun tribe warriors. If it was processed slightly with the Sun Shan power, it would become the Crow Thorn, which had intimidated all of the lands. Many great heroes had fallen under these nondescript crow thorns. Wang Lin had especially mentioned the Sun Shan tree, and specifically the sun seeds. Wang Lin had walked all over the Shen temple. He had been unable to enter the priest's hall, but he had detected the presence of the Sun Shen tree. He had been wounded by a crow thorn, captured alive and brought to this place. He knew very well how powerful it was. Since he could feel the presence of the Sun Shen tree, then it meant that the Sun Shen tree inside the hall was alive. The tree would produce a batch of sun seeds every 5 decades. After tens of thousands of years, how many sun seeds had been produced? Xuemo buried his head to pick sun seeds, unwilling to miss even one. If he missed one of this kind of miraculous object, then he would be struck by lightning. After he plowed through the soil nearby and made sure that he did not miss anything, he finally stood up contentedly. He looked at the 10 sun fruits hanging on the tree. He took out a jade box, and plucked the sun fruits to put them in the box. After picking the sun fruits, he looked at the bare Sun Shen tree and his mind moved. He moved it, along with the surrounding soil, into his ring. How could he leave a Shen tree to those people? Even though the sun fruit would only form every decade and the sun seeds required 50 years to mature, but this kind of Shen tree was a rare treasure on its own. Xuemo did not know what grade the sun tree was, but it definitely was not low. At the least, it was a Shen tree. Finished moving the Sun Shen tree, Xuemo looked around in hopes of finding something he missed. This was the garden of the Shen temple and there should have been ling trees planted. He quickly was disappointed. None of the other ling trees in this garden survived other than this Sun Shen tree. Thinking about it, he understood. The Shen temple had been separated from the outside. It would have been difficult just to supply the Sun Shen tree. They had no extra power to support other Shen trees. However, with little Moge's personality of plucking feathers from a chicken, his mind turned and he had a new idea. It was rational to think that such a large garden had not been planted with only the Sun Shen tree. It was normal that the other ling trees could not survive. However, the ground that was full of sun seeds reminded him that even if the ling trees did not survive, would they leave behind any seeds? Tens of thousands of years. Something common tens of thousands of years ago might be a treasure now. If those seeds could survive, they definitely were treasures. This idea motivated him. Without another word, he started to dig through the dirt. In the past, Ge had been a ling farmer. How could plowing the ground be difficult for Ge? Xuemo was like a human-shaped dirt plow that raked 3 chi into the ground. Everywhere he passed, the dirt flew. He did actually get a few items. A black fruit that was like a rock that was extremely hard and heavy. It was the size of a thumb but several caddies heavy. If there wasn't a thread of vitality contained inside, Xuemo would be certain it was a piece of rock. Other than this, Xuemo also got a section of half-rotten wood. It was the size of his arm and covered in dirt. When he wiped away the dirt, an unique scent burrowed into Xuemo's nose. Xuemo shuddered uncontrollably. Treasure. Xuemo instantly realized that this piece of wood that seemed rotten was definitely a treasure. Xuemo dug throughout the entire garden. It was a pity that there wasn't enough time. Xuemo looked with regret at the garden. If there was more time, he would dig 10 chi deep. But even now, Xuemo was content. He really had a good harvest. Xuemo paid attention to those people. The Yuanying that used fire had defeated the overflowing Earth secret realm and was hurrying in his direction. Xuemo shook. There were some minor traps along the way, but the other was able to defeat the overflowing Earth secret realm. These obstacles would definitely not be a problem for them. It was time to leave now. If he stayed longer, it would not be good. But there was still a place he hadn't gone to. Should he go or not? Xuemo hesitated. Elder Shen's face was slightly pale. Looking as the sand dunes disappeared like dust, he released a long breath. He was shocked inside. Zhu Gui's power was less than 1/10 of what it had been after tens of thousands of years. The sect leader had divined correctly. With the ultimate treasure of the sect, with his cultivation of yuanying, he had thought he would be able to subdue Zhu Gui. Yet he had almost fallen against Zhu Gui's last struggle before death. He really could not imagine just how great the power these ancient warriors possessed at their peak. The sand dunes beneath his feet completely disappeared. The overflowing secret realm was truly defeated. There was no joy in Elder Shen's eyes. He felt an extreme sense of urgency. One misstep, and he would get nothing. Also, the other had been in the Shen temple for so long. They definitely would not have ignored the ultimate treasures. Go. He did not wait for his Ling power to recover. He picked up Li Shu and Lu Zhen to disappear from his spot. They occasionally encountered obstacles along the path. But Elder Shen didn't have any intentions of stopping against the cannon fodder. Without another word, the fire in his hand would flash and the other would turn into dust. Compared to how they were delayed in the overflowing Earth secret realm, their progress now was unstoppable. After flying for a long time, the three reached the copper door. Looking at the open copper door, Elder Shen's expression changed. When he saw the empty sacrificial room, his face paled even more. He stomped his feet and flew towards the garden with a dark face. Even though he had the help of the sect leader's divination, it took him some time to find the garden. When he arrived at the garden and saw the garden that it seemed to have been plowed and was full of holes, blood rose in his throat. Ahahaha. This old man will not have mercy. You cannot escape. A wrenching yell echoed in the entire Shen temple. Zuo still decided to go take a look at the burning Shen realm. It was not far and there should be enough time. The burning Shen realm was the place that the Shen temple used to hold its enemies. Ancient warriors had been very strong and even if they were captured, it was hard to kill them. Due to this, they were usually imprisoned in special cages. Burning Shen realm was one of those cages. The burning Shen realm was a place that Big Brother Wang Lin had not gone into. The dark red earth under his feet exuded an astoundingly high temperature. The place was just multiple mu large but gave off a pressuring presence. The sun seed crystal above Zuomo's head gave off a faint golden light that covered Zuomo carefully explored. The power of the Shen temple was weak and the eternal flames of the burning Shen realm had been extinguished. Even so, it was not something that Zuomo could bear. If it wasn't for the sun crystal seed, Zuomo would not be able to enter this place. The burning Shen realm was dark and without a sun. Zuomo's vision was compressed and could only see the things 2 or 3 zhang ahead of him. It was completely bare. There was not anything. The high temperature under his feet gave Zuomo a feeling that he was walking on fire. The entire burning Shen realm, Zuomo felt uncomfortable, the area gave off a strong feeling of pressure and hopelessness. However, he still persisted in walking forward. He had the plan that if he was fast in his actions, it would not take much time. He would have regrets if he did not come. He quickly reached the end. His pupils suddenly contracted. Chapter 502, Extreme Joy to Sorrow. Zuomo carefully advanced. It was hard to feel safe in this ghastly place. Even though the burning Shen realm's flames had been extinguished for many years, the atmosphere of hopelessness and pressure that had formed over countless years pressed on Zuomo's heart like a rock. Zuomo's nerves were tightly tensed. Just now, he had seemed to see something out of the corner of his eye. Under this murderous environment, Zuomo's heart couldn't help but jump. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead, and managed to suppress it and calm himself down. This ghastly place. He really could not imagine how the people that had been imprisoned in the burning Shen realm had lived and wished for death. When he walked forward, Zuomo finally saw what that pile of things were. It was a pile of bones. Frightened for nothing, Zuomo instantly released a breath. It was most likely the bones left behind from a person imprisoned in the Burning Shen realm, one burned to death. Sui Mo shook his head. It seemed that there wasn't anything good left in here. He bent down and started to collect out of habit. When his hand came into contact with the bones, he instantly felt it was strange. His expression changed as he hurriedly picked up a piece of bone. He held it out in front of himself and started to examine it closely. This bone should be a bone in the arm. It was not different in size compared than normal bones, but when he held it, he felt a clear difference. It was extremely heavy, 4 to 5 times as heavy as normal arm bones. The bone was not the stark white of normal bones but a rare dark green. There were threads of dark red patterns on the surface and the bone felt as though it was made from jade. Sui Mo picked up another bone and lightly tapped the two of them together. Ding! A clear sound. Without any warning, an invisible wave of sound suddenly exploded and headed at him. Sui Mo was unable to react in time and felt golden light flash, so bright it blinded him. It was the sun crystal seed above his head that was stimulated and automatically protected its owner. Alarmed, Sui Mo almost threw the 2 bones in his hands away. Fortunately, his second reaction was also extremely fast and he managed to stop. When his mood settled, his eyes became eerily green as though he wanted to eat these bones. Treasure. Definitely treasure. Sui Mo didn't know how many times he shouted these words mentally. Common. So common. But he still couldn't help but shout. There was a glow that was called Jingshi on his face. He caressed the green jade bones on his hands and was filled with emotion. Great ones were really great ones. Even the bones of great ones after death were this extraordinary, this powerful. Sui Mo carefully picked up the ink jade bones one by one, picking them up gently and putting them down gently. After picking up the ink jade bones on the top, Sui Mo's gaze was suddenly attracted by an object. What was that? His mind alert, Sui Mo instantly swept away the dirt and dust to pick it up. A bronze mask. Really ugly. Sui Mo muttered. The mask was cold in his hand. What was most startling was the 2 empty eye sockets on the face. The mouth engraved on the mask gaped wildly as though it held viciousness and disdain. It revealed 2 rows of sharp fangs like that of a wild beast and was biting on a broken arrow. The broken arrow seemed to have been dyed by some unknown material that was red and appeared as though it was dripping blood. The craftsmanship style was very crude, but it held the flavor of savagery. This should be a treasure. Sui Mo wasn't sure. Compared to the inky jade bones, the bronze mask did not seem very attention-catching. It seemed to be a normal bronze mask. Sui Mo was even unable to feel any power ripples from it. But since it was able to survive for so many years, it should have some value. In such a heated Burning Shen realm, the coldness that the mask radiated caused Sui Mo to feel very comfortable. Without another word, he put the mask on. A wave of coolness passed over. Sui Mo felt unspeakably comfortable. His body instantly felt lighter, and the pressure that had been covering his mind seemed to decrease. Good thing. Sui Mo instantly felt affection for this mask. This wave of coolness was not thick but it seemed to seep into his bones. His mind instantly became clearer. Talismans that could clear the mind were very popular on the market. It wasn't just beneficial for daily cultivation, they were also extremely practical in battle. They could decrease the power of the enemy's illusory spells and could help the wearer cast spells. This mask was able to subdue the effects of the Burning Shen realm. Just this one quality was enough for Sui Mo to hold on to it and not let go. What kind of place was the Burning Shen realm? The effect that normal talismans could have in this place was so small it was insignificant. Good treasure, good treasure. Sui Mo smiled and searched the entire Burning Shen realm but did not have any more discoveries. The ground of the Burning Shen temple was as hard as metal. Sui Mo could only sigh. It would be hard to even leave a mark on the ground, much less dig down. Content, Mo did not notice that the power of the Shen temple was decreasing at an astounding rate. The Xianxia that were fighting noticed immediately. No matter if it was the realm guardians or the traps, their power decreased dramatically. All of these people were old-timers and instantly understood what had happened. The power of the Shen temple has weakened. Li Shu looked at the sky and said lightly. Elder Shen snorted coldly, his voice carrying deep urgency and murderousness. He got it. Their speed suddenly increased. At the same time, the masked assassin suddenly erupted and defeated the aged gold secret realm. At this point, the middle-aged male was urgent and impatient. Faster, faster. That Sun Tribe descendant got it. Without another word, the masked assassin picked up the middle-aged male and disappeared as he used his movement method. In the other places, several groups coincided. However, they maintained a safe distance from each other with their gazes filled with thick enmity. However, they did not fight. Up until now, no one had gained anything. Everyone had come in search of wealth. Before there was anything profitable appeared, no one would move rashly. Everyone used their own movement methods to increase their speed, all moving towards the mask. Along the way, they could see traces that things had been moved. There clearly had been people that reached these places first. This caused everyone's expressions to become terrible. Damn it! If ye knows who has these things, ye'll cut off his hands, one of the people said hatefully. Is it those Yuanying? Someone asked. So what if it is the Yuanying? Yuanying means they can take it all. Do they not know the rules? If they eat the meat, they have to leave soup for us, someone shouted out in discontent. No one verbally agreed but many had expressions of agreement. Those that were able to enter were famous people on the rankings of Cloud Sijie. Many of the top 10 had come. Those that did not were either on a distant trip or in seclusion, so they were unable to get here in time. Otherwise, they would have definitely come. These experts usually had their eyes pointed at the sky and were very proud. They all came with great expectations into the Shen temple. But they worked so hard and took such a great risk yet ended up with nothing. Several places that looked as though they had treasure seemed to have been searched by someone already. In the most exaggerated place, even the soil had been upturned. This caused many people to stare in shock. What kind of person was this? Searching for treasure like this? This attitude of turning the earth caused many people to feel deep shock. But more people had black faces, their eyes flashing with the sparks of anger as blood rushed into their throats. Was there anything more depressing than this? They could only furiously channel their Ling power and did not stop along the way. If you're lucky, don't let ye catch you. Otherwise, spit out everything that you ate. Everyone's mental thought was unusually similar. These people were extremely outstanding in strength and with their anger boiling, their wrath could be imagined. Adding on that the power of the Shen temple had weakened, they were unstoppable on their path. If one looked from the sky, they could see all the Xianxia in the Sun Shen temple was furiously gathering in the direction that Mo was at. At the very front was the trio of Elder Shen. Contented, Mo came out of the burning Shen realm. He had originally went in with the thought of exploring and had not expected to get something. The joy in his heart could be imagined. Extremely content. Bastard! This old man finally found you. Do not run. A dark and furious voice suddenly came from behind him. Mo's expression changed dramatically. Damn it! This was fatal. His reaction was extremely rapid. Seeing the situation, he prepared to activate the light void wings to escape but found to his shock that the three powers in his body had transformed back to Shen power. This suddenly change instantly caused Mo's soul to fly out. It did not require a long time for Shen power to turn to the three powers, but at this critical time, the delay was fatal. In this blink, Elder Shen and the other two surrounded him. Elder Shen felt very good. His gaze landed on the sun crystal seed on top of Zhuo Mo's head and his eyes narrowed. He could not stop the greed in his eyes from showing as he said darkly, "So it is the sun crystal seed. I was saying, how could there be sun descendants? Your luck is pretty good to get such a great treasure." Li Shu and Lu Zhen also had excited expressions. They were high on their guard and were wary of letting the other escape. Li Shu was more detail-minded. His gaze landed on the bronze mask on the other's face. For some unknown reason, he felt a thread of fear. This thread of fear came out of nowhere. He hurriedly focused. With Elder present, the other definitely could not escape. Eld Shen said lightly, "Be good and give the treasures, I'll spare your life." Zhuo Mo's heart sank and a bitter smile came onto his mouth. As expected, people died for wealth, birds died for food. The pressure of the Yuanying was like a mountain. Zhuo Mo felt he couldn't breathe as the mountain-like pressure came onto him. What was even worse was that the sun crystal seed shrank back. It did not react at all against the pressure that came at him. The last life-saving straw was ineffective. Zhuo Mo's heart reached rock bottom. At this moment, Elder Shen's expression changed. "Leaving the treasures is a given, but I think that the life doesn't need to be spared." A middle-aged person dressed in Taoist robes slowly appeared in Zhuo Mo's vision. His appearance was extremely sudden as it seemed to be out of thin air. "I agree with Brother Ye's words." An old person with a bamboo staff came out of the corner. Zhuo Mo's face was ashen. Yuanying. 2 more Yuanying. You're tuning into the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.